All right, hello everybody. Investing is a vehicle for freedom. We are sitting on the seats of our edge. Not bad. Not bad at all. It's like finding a hay in a needle stack. The stock market is now open! Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. We are here today. Got the intro officially rolling. I'm not sure how much I love the intro, not sure how much I'm sold on it, but we got some intro. I did figure out that 10-second delay issue. Shout out to someone who messaged me on Twitter last night and messaged me a video of like this little 10-second countdown intro you can put in the beginning of it. I like it for now. We'll see if we change in the future. I do think it's a little long. It's about 30 seconds. And I think it can get annoying every single day if you listen to that for 30 seconds. But I also think it's kind of a good delay to get started into the stream. So not fully sold on it, but it's there. It's here right now. I know some people like it. Some people don't love it. But we are still rolling with some type of intro. Dude says intro is longer than the Game of Thrones. This is a work in progress. This is what it is to do show business live in front of all you guys. But we will figure it out. I got a lot of good feedback yesterday that a lot of people liked it and it was good. I do feel it's a little long though. So I mean, we'll figure it out. We'll see how we want to roll with it into the future. But at least you guys got to hear the good morning, and we're starting at like a definitive time where people can log in and like actually listen to the stream versus like jump in and immediately hear me talking and get cut off from the beginning. So there we go. We are ready to go. Today is going to be a very, very important day in the equity markets. We have Jerome Powell speaking at 2:30 p.m. I'll be live at 2:20 Eastern Standard Time to get ready for that. We have Meta reporting earnings. We have Microsoft reporting earnings. We have Tesla reporting earnings. We have so many headlines from last night that are putting more questions than answers in regards to what's going on with AI, what's going on with DeepSeek, what's going on with the broader Nvidia thesis. So there's a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. The streaming schedule for today is we will be live until 12 o'clock today, basically 11:30, 12. And then we're going to take a 2-hour break, and then we'll go live again at 2:20. And that 2:20 live stream, which is 10 minutes before Jerome Powell talks, we get the actual Fed decision at 2 p.m., which is likely going to be a pause. It's not going to be anything too special. That'll go on to like 6:30, 7 o'clock. So that'll be like a 5-6 hour stream, but I do think there should be a 2-hour delay just to get people ready to get into a longer stream and for us to have a proper earnings stream outside of just the market open. So yeah, we'll have the broader market open today. And then after that, we will get ready for one of the most exciting days of 2025. Now, a lot of stuff happened over the night that we got to talk about in regards to what it means for Nvidia. I was actually up at like 2 a.m. last night. I slept kind of late. So that means I was awake at 1 a.m. to see a company called Asml crush earnings. And that actually really helped Nvidia. Nvidia gapped up to 131 last night. It's not at 131 anymore, but it did show that the broader semiconductor ecosystem might be way better than what people expected, and also proves that DeepSeek's probably not going to be the end of the Nvidia thesis. So lot to talk about, lot to get into. Let's get into it. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Jersey Guido, what's up? Emel, Tess, Dragos, Hardy, Matthew, good morning. Anthony, thank you for being here. John, Bay Ray, Christopher, Andy, what's up, what's up? Crowd Control, thank you, everybody, for being here. It's a big, big, big day in the stock market, and we're going to have a lot to discuss throughout the entire day. Quite frankly, this is going to be a day that actually determines where the trajectory of the market goes. So far, we've had a hell of a market. It's basically been like 2024 all over again. If big tech can crush, we have some new updates on other S&P 500 companies and how they've done as an aggregate that we'll get into when we start talking about macro. It's been really good. It's been really good. Like, it's been way better than what I thought would happen. So, and guidance for Q1 has not been bad either. So as long as that can continue with big tech, 2025 is looking like it's going to be set up to be not too bad of a year. Midwest, good morning. Thank you for being here. Sanjay, what's up? Kenneth, Chuck, I'm Beneficial, Carl, Walter White, Josephine. Walter White, that name based on your name, you just triggered a memory I had. My cousin is watching Breaking Bad for the second time. I've watched Breaking Bad. I know you guys, I can't watch movies or shows or anything, which ironically, I was listening to a podcast about the Soviet Union last night. I had some weird dreams, bro. Let's just say about that, because the podcast kept playing while I was sleeping, and then I was in Russia in my dream. It was a wild dream. But that's the stuff that keeps my attention, right? Not Billy Madison, but Soviet Union podcast. But I can't watch Breaking Bad because I've watched it like 10 times, like literally 10 times over the past 10 years. But my cousin's watching it for the second time, and she was like, it's even better than the first time. And it's just one of the best shows ever. It's better on the second time. So there you go. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Richard, Mila, thank you, Ian. All right, let's get started. Gene says, I'm in Santa Clara right now. It's 5:52 a.m. and I'm up watching Amit. When I go to California in about 2 weeks, which, by the way, the Bay Area Meetup Forum will be live probably before the end of this market open. I'm going to link it probably like in a couple hours. So it'll be live here. It'll be live on Twitter as well. So everyone will get a chance to sign up. I'm going to be there for a week. And so I'll be doing the market open every day at 5:45 a.m. And then I'll be done by like 9. And it's going to be wild to get the market open done with. And the rest of the day is left at 9 a.m. So it'll be analyzing the financial markets, even though we are 3 hours behind from when the financial markets open. And I don't know, maybe I'll like it. Maybe I'll want to move to California because it'll be easier to do it. But that'll be coming up soon, and you guys will get that form for California. But Gene, thank you for watching all the way from beautiful Santa Clara. All right, so before we get started with NVIDIA DeepSeek, which is kind of the core news I want to talk with, because we have a lot of headlines on OpenAI finding some evidence of DeepSeek ironically or non-ironically stealing data, because no one thought the CCP would steal data. And before we get into ASML, I want to start off with the most bullish stat I have seen, I think, in the past 5 years of covering the equity markets. That's how bullish this stat is. And I think it's one of those things that's like, I saw it last night. I couldn't believe it. I had to confirm it from multiple sources and be like, is this real or is this some random clickbait stat? It is real. It's happening. And I couldn't believe it. But nonetheless, it proves that I think we really are in a bull market. So what is the stat? On a day with the worst market cap erasure of NVIDIA, right? $600 billion that went away from NVIDIA, which triggered a chain reaction in the semiconductors and the energy infrastructure data center plays. The NASDAQ pulled in $4.3 billion of inflows in one day. Let me say that again. On the worst day for one of the largest holdings in the NASDAQ, $4.3 billion of funds across the world said, you know what? We're not only going to buy the dip, but we're really going to buy the dip, and we're going to put some of our money into what we think is the best, you could call it ETF in the world, best index in the world, which is the NASDAQ 100. And we're gonna put money to work on a day where it seems the worst. 4.3 billion. I mean, this is not supposed to happen. This is not supposed. Nvidia, which is one of the leaders of the NASDAQ, is not supposed to fall 17%, lose $600 billion in a day. And the NASDAQ has its best daily inflow since 2021. Like, what? Like, again, I saw this stat last night and I was like, okay, so all the bears that were coming out, as Dan Ives would say, out of hibernation and basically making the argument that NVIDIA is dead, the CapEx trade is dead. You had some, well-prominent CNBC analysts saying, look, we told you so. This was not going to be a good year for the AI trade. Why did I don't think it's retail, dude. I don't think retail, and we know it's not retail. We know retail had $560 million of money come into NVIDIA in particular. So I doubt retail had $4.3 billion go right into the queues. Maybe it is. Maybe it's just retail buying the dip and it's a bull trap. But maybe it's not. Maybe it's investors that have been waiting for so long on an opportunity, like we got on Monday, that a lot of people took advantage of. And maybe that was the opportunity that everyone was waiting for, and then they finally got it. I mean, if we look at a chart of NVIDIA, which is really crazy, NVIDIA was under its 200-day moving average for the first time in more than 2 years, and it only stayed there for a day. Now, we'll see what happens to NVIDIA today. NVIDIA, nice little rebound yesterday, up 8%, which was really nice to see. Added $255 billion after losing $600 billion. It's down about 2% in the pre-markets right now, so obviously it's being choppy. But we only got a day of NVIDIA being below the 200-day moving average, and on that day, investors said, you know what, we are buying the dip. What that speaks to for me in regards to why I think that stat is so bullish is because it is an exact replication of, again, 2024. 2024, when there was a dip, people stepped in. Why did they step in? Because they began to think it's a bull market. And maybe those people were more retail than institutional, but by the end of the year, institutional investors, we saw this with Palantir, right? The fact that they were buying it at 60, 70, 80 means that they had to get some exposure to the bull market to justify keeping their 2% management fee. And as a result, that led to people buying at higher prices. I think the $7 trillion of money that's on the sidelines, and we will get an update tomorrow on money market inflows, especially it'll be interesting to see what that's like after tech earnings today and after J. Powell pauses. We added 60 billion last week. So that's another crazy thing. We added 60 billion in money market funds last week. Last week was one of the best weeks of January because of the inauguration, and markets ended at an all-time high. Bitcoin was at an all-time high, et cetera. And still, we see a dramatic decline, but investors that probably have money on the sidelines that have not been putting that money to work, they decide it's time to come into the NASDAQ. So, I mean, I don't know. I thought that stat was incredible. I saw it last night. I couldn't believe it. On a day where there should be peak fear, peak panic, everyone's just like, oh, holy crap, this Nvidia thing is done for. We don't know enough about DeepSeek. Let's just chill with our cash on the sidelines. Most investors decided they were going to buy the dip. And 4.3 billion coming into the largest tech ETF ever probably assumes that there is an argument that the market believes earnings growth is going to be strong and that 2025 is not going to be the worst year in the world. Did I say peak panic? What? I meant to say peak panic. How did I say peak panic? How does this stuff happen, bro? I don't even have to try to mispronounce words, and it just ends up coming out. Peak panic. That's going to be a new catchphrase. That's got to be added to the intro. So there you go. Amit, my girlfriend watching you now. Please shout out her name is Dominique. Dominique, thank you for watching the show. Thank you for enjoying it with your boyfriend, and thank you for being here. Hopefully you are enjoying the show, and hopefully you are getting some excitement for the markets. Shout out to Ash, by the way. I showed you guys at the meetup. Ash brought his girlfriend literally to the meetup, and it was awesome because his girl wasn't too into stocks, but as she started watching the show and started watching him watch the show, we got more girls into finance, which is awesome because there's not enough of them there. So thank you for watching the show. Hopefully you enjoy it, and hopefully you get value out of the market open every single day. Okay, so that's what we had for the biggest stat that caught my attention. Now let's talk about Nvidia. So first of all, ASML, they crushed it. ASML crushed it. I don't know enough about ASML as I should. This is a company I'm still learning about, but this is the only number that matters. Net bookings, look at that. Beat it by double. Beat it by double. The market expected 3.35 billion or 3.53 billion. They brought in 7.9 billion or 7.09 billion. So when you beat by that level, obviously the market says, okay, ASML, which is part of the chip design manufacturing process, there is a correlation between what they're doing and what's happening with Nvidia. And late last night, again, I was up at like 130. You saw Nvidia gap up to that 131 range. Right now, Nvidia right here at 126. But still, it kind of proved, okay, so the semis trade is not over with. There is not a literal obvious correlation between Nvidia and ASML, but when you read between the lines, there is somewhat of a correlation. It's kind of not exactly one-to-one because ASML functions in a different part of the overall chip supply chain. But like it's hard to deny when you double your bookings, which actually is way better than what happened in October of 2024, where like their bookings collapsed by 50%. It seems like demand came back for ASML in a meaningful way. And that spiked up NVIDIA. Now in the pre-markets right now, we got a lot of different jitters going on with different headlines, and that's why NVIDIA is down 2.24%. But that is relatively bullish. And but the fact that NVIDIA was able to gap up to 131 so easily last night also showed that the stock is incredibly fragile and it can move up or down on any headline. And ASML was enough of a headline to move it up, even if DeepSeek was enough of a headline to move it down by 17%, which is not the worst thing in the world. So this is what we got in the context of NVIDIA. And again, even if there is not a direct correlation between ASML and NVIDIA because it's a different company, I don't know exactly about that company, but I know the investors that invest in it have a different thesis outside of just like GPU demand. The point is the market interpreted it positively, right? So whatever you think about ASML as a semiconductor trade, the market saw that number last night and was like, oh, this has to be good for NVIDIA. Now, maybe the market's wrong, maybe the market's right. But nonetheless, that was a headline that NVIDIA moved off of. Another headline NVIDIA moved off of late last night is that OpenAI reportedly has found some issues when it comes to ChatGPT and DeepSeek. And the argument here is that DeepSeek definitively stole a decent amount of data from OpenAI. So that headline broke late last night, and the idea was DeepSeek somehow got access to OpenAI's not only data, but OpenAI's ability but not only OpenAI's data, which is interesting because that's some of the training models that they use that was proprietary to OpenAI, but also to illegal GPUs from Nvidia. And given that is the headline that's going on now, that the way they were able to do this was basically steal a ton of different chips, it's begging the question of like, okay, hold on, wait a second. How exactly did this play out? So this is the report by the Financial Times right here. Yeah, why am I not shocked, right? Why am I not shocked? OpenAI says that it's found evidence that Chinese artificial intelligence startup DeepSeek use the company's proprietary models to train its own open source competitor as concerns grow over a potential breach of intellectual property. The San Francisco-based ChatGPT maker told the Financial Times it had some evidence of distillation, which is suspects from DeepSeek, which is funny because OpenAI steals data from everyone else, but when it comes to their proprietary models, they're upset that DeepSeek stole it. Obviously, a Chinese company should not be stealing an American company's data. But the point is, everyone's stealing everything at this point when it comes to building all this stuff. The technique is used by developers to obtain better performance on smaller models by using outputs from larger, more capable ones, allowing them to achieve similar results on similar tasks, on specific tasks at a much lower cost. The way I interpret that is that when ChatGPT trains itself on the history of the Soviet Union, for example, they're taking in a lot of sources to be able to get the language to form the large language model to give you an accurate result about the history of the Soviet Union. So ChatGPT is probably stealing from YouTube transcripts. They're stealing from Wikipedia. They're stealing from blogs and articles on Google. They're indexing all this stuff. I mean, literally, they had to steal this back in 2021. There's no other way they could have came up with GPT-3 in the first place. And that's how they get all that information. DeepSeek probably said, hey, we're not going to steal the source data on the history of the Soviet Union and every single word on the internet that's been written about it. We're just going to take the results that ChatGPT comes up with about what happens, when you ask it about a history lesson around the Soviet Union. We're going to distill that, and that is going to be what we use to train our model, which obviously is a lot cheaper than literally going to every single source on the internet about the Soviet Union, because you're just inputting less data, but more accurate data because you're using data that's already trained, and then you're training a model in your own way from an inference perspective. So it actually makes a lot of sense. Now, is that something that ChatGPT can sue them over or attack them on? I don't know, but it does prove that what I think it proves is even though the cost to train was less, the reasons the cost to train were less, which again goes back to Nvidia, is that they were using distillation. So they were using OpenAI's models to train, which made it cheaper to actually create a foundation model. And B, they're not innovating, right? Maybe the process of how they trained was kind of innovative, but they're not actually innovating when it comes to the data. They're just stealing American models. And, it begs the question, how valuable is that if there's not actual real innovation there? And what does that mean for the broader AI ecosystem when it comes to DeepSeek actually being competitive? But outside of that, we got some other news last night that has nothing to do with just OpenAI and has everything to do with DeepSeek. Alibaba, I didn't even know Alibaba was coming up with a large language model, but it makes sense. It's one of the biggest tech companies in China. Why wouldn't they be working on a large language model? They came up with Qwen 2.5 Max. Qwen 2.5 Max outperforms DeepSeek version 3 in specific benchmarks like Arena Hard, Live Bench, and Live Code Bench. So now it's a hell of a wake-up call to the United States, because not only did some random tech company inside of a hedge fund build a foundation model, even if they did it with stealing GPUs and stealing data, but nonetheless, they came up with it that is competitive with GPT. Alibaba throws their hat into the race and they said, hey, we've got a lot of cloud compute. Alibaba is the largest cloud provider in China. We have tons of money. We have tons of researchers. We have tons of data. We can build our own model. And because Alibaba built their own model, now I think it's just a broader wake-up call to the United States of, okay, they're not slowing down. Like China's not slowing down. The US is not slowing down, but the US theoretically has no choice but to not slow down, because if China continues to build what it's building, then it's not going to stop anytime soon. This is the official tweet from Alibaba on DeepSeek v3 and what they've created, like Qwen. This is another open source model that outperforms DeepSeek as well. Yeah, Amit, but they said they are spending $500 million, not the $6 million. They said correct. They are spending $500 million versus $6 million. So Alibaba didn't, spend 2 pennies to make this model. They actually spent a decent amount of money. But the point is, it's less even a question now about NVIDIA's demand because, to build these map models, we know there's going to need to be demand. And I think the market's coming back to its senses about that story. And we'll talk about what Zux and Adela have to say today to reaffirm that story. But it's more so now US versus China. I mean, I think for the longest, no one thought China was going to be able to come up with any real AI innovation, especially because their economy's in the gutter. But even if their economy's in the gutter, some of these larger companies are not stopping with the innovation when it comes to building these models. And I think it's probably because the CCP is going up to them and saying, hey, our economy sucks right now. The US is kicking our ass. We need to somehow be competitive in the AI war. So like take whatever money you need and build some models and see if you guys can compete with the Anthropics, Geminis, and OpenAIs of the world. And that's what we got going on right now. Yeah, Russia hasn't done anything, bro. I have not seen a single Russia AI model. Has Russia had a tech innovation in the past 20 years? Have they done anything? Like Russia, I'm not well versed in the history of Russia. And Russia's usually not in the news when it comes to just tech and innovation. They're in the news for a lot of other things. But China tries to get into the news for tech and innovation, even if they don't always have tech and innovation. Humanoid robotics, there's like a lot of companies in China trying to build that stuff. But as of now, it's China versus the US. It is completely China versus the US here right now. Alex says same as the EU. They just do nothing. I've been reading some reports that people are saying it's time to invest in the EU because the sentiment is so bad. And then I was looking at some statistics in the United Kingdom and Germany and their growth rates and just the biggest companies there. And I'm like, dude, I get that sentiment is theoretically bottomed in Europe, but why would you invest anywhere besides the United States? It's just hard. It's really hard to take money away from US companies, even if there's emerging markets that are, maybe not growing, but have some potential. It's tough. It's tough. ASML is in the EU. Spotify's in the EU. There's a handful of LVMH. There's a handful of companies. There's a handful of companies that really are representing the European Union. And that's sad, dude. I feel like there should be hundreds of companies just like in the United States. But it's just a different world in the EU versus the United States. Having said that, so what is the takeaway for investors? DeepSeek probably stole some data. Alibaba's working on developing their own model that's competitive with DeepSeek, which means I assume this is still good for NVIDIA. There's going to be demand, even if there's creative ways to train on the inference for that demand. And if ASML showed 50% more bookings, even if there's not a one-to-one correlation with NVIDIA, there's definitely some correlation, which is why investors are getting excited. Now, the last thing on NVIDIA here, and then we'll get into some of the earnings previews we have and macro stuff, is CapEx guidance for 2025. So today's going to be incredibly important because Microsoft and Meta report their CapEx guidance. Meta already said 65 billion. Microsoft already said 80 billion. If that continues, then we are going to see a significant level of CapEx that's spent in 2025. The projections right now are 270 billion in 2025, which is up from 60 billion, or it's up from an aggregate of about 200 billion in 2024. And 306 billion is the projection for 2026. If these projections can be laid out as accurately as what the market assumes them to be going into today's earnings, which I can't imagine they're not. I hope they are. If they are, then I think NVIDIA has a little bit of recovery. And I think the market, which already was able to give NVIDIA 200 billion out of the 600 billion it lost yesterday, maybe the market's like, all right, we freaked out for no reason, which happens, bro. The market is made out of individual people at the end of the day. And individual people get stupid and they end up they end up doing some dumb stuff. So I would imagine that maybe that hysteria and panic is what caused the market to be like this, but also some reaffirmation from Microsoft and Meta about what it means for how much CapEx they're spending could get the market to get back to their senses. By the way, my dad bought the dip on NVIDIA, if you guys were wondering. A couple of days ago, he bought it at 125, and then yesterday he bought it at 120. So he came home and he's like, yeah, cop some NVIDIA. Again, it's a total 180 for him, dude. He doesn't buy on red days. He is not conditioned to buy on red. And then yesterday he was like, nah, bro, screw it. It was at 120. I bought it at 125 the day before. I bought some more NVIDIA. So he engaged in buying the dip. I mean, that's got to be crazy, dude. When the dip is that bad that my dad buys the dip, you gotta imagine that it got pretty exaggerated to an extent when it came to that dip. And look, I know a lot of you guys bought the dip. I bought the dip. I sold some puts. We'll see how NVIDIA plays out. It's at 125.6 right now. Why is it tanking right now in the pre-market? Honestly, I don't know. The ASML news is bullish. The DeepSeek stealing OpenAI data is kind of bullish because that means at the end of the day, they're probably lying about a lot of other stuff and you do need more GPUs. SMCI is up a little bit. But also, yesterday could be, to give the bear case, a little bit of a dead cat bounce. It could have been just a technical retracement after falling 17%, and we might see it retrace back to levels that it was at yesterday, or even into the 118s, 117s, even though yesterday held around 124 for the majority of the day. So I don't know. At 9:30, we're going to have to see how it plays out. But what I do know is Meta and Microsoft crushing earnings, saying that cloud compute demand is not going away, saying CapEx demand is not stopping because we need to keep out innovating our competitors, especially with Alibaba popping up models out of nowhere. I mean, when that happens, you would imagine that these guys have to keep spending because they definitely don't want to lose the AI race to a company in China, much less a company in the United States. That would lead to more demand, not less demand for Nvidia. Here is the AI crypto czar, David Sachs, speaking about the relationship between China and the US when it comes to AI.
This is where DeepSeek's innovation is they have managed to get more efficiency out of chips. They're squeezing more juice out of the chips, and they kind of have to because of the export controls, which limited advanced chips going to China. They've had to learn how to be more efficient. So necessity has been the mother of invention for them. That being said, there are still great advantages to having a lot of chips, enormous number of chips. And I think that this is an area where America can continue to lead, is in a build out of this infrastructure and having the most advanced chips. And so I think it's a little bit of an overreaction to say that America doesn't need big AI data centers anymore. I think we need the build out of these big AI data centers. I think President Trump has expressed support for them. And I think we need to make it easier to build those data centers, to get them permitted and licensed, and to get power generated, electricity for those data centers. If we scale the biggest data centers, it is still an advantage. It is true that DeepSeek has shown new ways for AI models to be efficient, and I think our AI companies are going to learn and adopt those efficiency techniques as well. But you still want to be able to scale compute, and the data centers are essential for that.
Is there IP theft here? Did they steal some of what they were able to scale up here from us? And do we need to close the doors on what we're doing in terms of invention and technology?
Well, it's possible. There's a technique in AI called distillation, which you're going to hear a lot about, and it's when one model learns from another model. Effectively, what happens is that the student model asks the parent model a lot of questions, just like a human would learn. But AIs can do this, asking millions of questions, and they can essentially mimic the reasoning process that they learn from the parent model, and they can kind of suck the knowledge out of the parent model. And there's substantial evidence that what DeepSeek did here is they distilled the knowledge out of OpenAI's models. And I don't think OpenAI is very happy about this. And I think one of the things you're going to see over the next few months is our leading AI companies taking steps to try and prevent distillation. And so we'll see if the leading AI companies can prevent distillation by third-party companies. That would definitely slow down some of these copycat models.
So you got David Sachs, AI crypto czar, basically saying, hey, we think a lot of this stuff is stolen and the data centers and necessity for compute is not going away. Palmer Luckey, founder of Anduril, here's what he wrote last night at his take on this. DeepSeek is legitimately impressive, but the level of hysteria is an indictment of so many. The 5 million number is bogus. It is pushed by a Chinese hedge fund to slow investment in American AI startups. We did talk about that theory yesterday, the idea that Chinese hedge funds went short the US market. They pumped a number to disrupt the AI trade, got the market to overreact to it. They covered their short, and then they went long the day after. There's no proof of that, but it is a theory that's out there. Because even, American hedge funds engage in this type of manipulation. So you could imagine that China, if they had a stat like $5 million that could disrupt Nvidia, they would take advantage of that. Service their own shorts against American titans like Nvidia and hide sanction evasion. America is a fertile bed for psyops like this because our media apparatus hates our technology companies and wants to see President Trump fail. We have so many useful idiots uncritically reporting Chinese propaganda as fact because on some level they want it to be true. They love seeing hundreds of billions of dollars wiped off the market cap of our largest companies. So Palmer Luckey's take, which is not a take that should be surprising anyone given he runs Anduril, is that this is Chinese propaganda and the media running with this narrative is continuing to propagate Chinese propaganda, and that there is no way in hell that a Chinese company is going to dethrone the empire that Nvidia has built off of a claim that they built a foundation model for $5 million. So that's the argument that Palmer Luckey made last night. And I think a lot of people in the tech industry as well are starting to agree with that take. So that's everything on NVIDIA. Last thing I'll say right here, which actually, no, that's pretty much it with NVIDIA. I don't think there's anything else there. Yeah, there's no other update for NVIDIA. ASML earnings was decent. Meta and Microsoft today is going to be important. And then we'll just take one look at it in the pre-markets, then we'll move on to some macro stuff. Down 2.4%. We got to see. We got to see if this one breaks below 125, 124 today. Yesterday was a nice reversal, dude. It hit 116 for a couple of seconds, and then it made its way to 122. And then by the end of the day, it ended at 128.9. I mean, that's incredible, right? It's a really nice reversal. So today will be the third day of the 3-day rule. And so we'll see how much this is able to bounce or keep the spot that it's at right now. KeyBank did upgrade Meta to 750. All right, so let's start with that. This is the first poll in the chat today. What do you guys think? Meta pump or dump? I am so torn on this. I want to say they're going to pump to the moon and they're going to go up another 10%. On average, they go up about 7 to 8%. And I want to say the street's going to love everything Zuck says. And I think that's going to happen. But then I think, man, they've pumped so much going into earnings. It's a little scary. And I don't know what they're going to say to get the market to give them another 7 to 8%. I don't know. I'm torn on this. But we're going to find out later here today. Okay, cool. So that's all the coverage on NVIDIA. Let's move on to macro. So before we get into economic macro stuff, here's an update from the White House. As a content creator, this was pretty surprising in a good way. Here's what White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who is the youngest press secretary ever, said yesterday.
We also, again, encourage anybody in this country, whether you are a TikTok content creator, a blogger, a podcaster, if you are producing legitimate news content, no matter the medium, you will be allowed to apply for press credentials to this White House. And as I said earlier, our new media website is whitehouse.gov/new media. And so we encourage people to apply. Again, as long as you are creating news-related content of the day and you're a legitimate independent journalist, you're welcome to cover this White House.
Sorry if the audio was a little low on that, but essentially what she said is that if you are an independent content creator, you can apply for a White House press pass. And I did not expect the Trump administration to have that type of policy when it comes to media. But when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Why does it make a lot of sense? Well, they won the election through independent media, content creators, journalists, podcasters, etc. And so you have the Biden administration that rejected 400 different media organizations that they did not feel deserved to be in the White House press briefing room. You've got the Trump administration saying, hey, we don't care if you're Fox News. We don't care if you're some random Joe Schmo who built up his podcast on TikTok and is covering the White House. If you're in politics, you've got an opinion and you've got somewhat of a following, you are encouraged to apply to be a press reporter at the White House and get some exclusive access that has only been reserved for the legacy media companies like the CNNs, MSNBCs, Foxes of the world. So I know all you guys are telling me to apply. I think I might apply for it. Who knows? I might apply for it. Obviously, I don't live in DC and I wouldn't be able to come to the press briefing every day, but maybe I'll apply. And if I ever do get a chance to go to DC, they would let me come into the room. But it's pretty incredible. It's pretty damn incredible. So from a journalistic perspective, I think look, I know a lot of people have different opinions on Trump. I get it. And this is not even, I don't even think this is a political statement. I just think for the concept of free speech and more people having access to democratized news sources, what am I doing right now on this live stream? It is an independent way to create content around the stock market that is not in the confluence of mainstream media like CNBC or Bloomberg, right? I'm not saying those media outlets are bad either. They have their pluses, their minuses, but the point is independent creators having an opportunity to access an audience and to build a platform is just special to me. It's just really, as a content creator, it's very special to me. And as people that want to create content in the future that maybe want to do what I'm doing one day, the fact is it's possible. You got to work your ass off. You got to take constant abuse from this chat for 3 hours, cyberbullying you, and freaking Andrew Ross Sorkin doesn't have to deal with that. But if you're willing to go through that, I mean, you can build a platform. So I like this. I like this policy a lot. I like that this is a 27-year-old White House press secretary. This is not some 45-year-old or 50-year-old that is trained in the world of PR. This is someone who came up on new media. That's probably why the Trump administration picked them, because they know she can speak to the youth and they want the youth to be listening because the youth is going to be voting for new presidents one day. And now they're allowing different outlets of people to gain access to this content. So I think it's amazing. I'm a big fan of it as an independent content creator. And again, this is just one of those things that I think is not the worst thing in the world in terms of the Trump administration's policies. And I don't even think that's political, bro. I think if you just care about free speech and open opinions, you've got to agree that's a good idea. allowing more independent voices to come and cover the United States government. Chad is here in the chat. All you need to do is say it goes green and red all day. Yes, exactly. That's as long as we switch. Well, we're going to be doing a lot of traffic light coordination with Microsoft, Meta, and Tesla. I was on the phone with Steve last night, and we were both so mad that all three of them are happening at one moment, because it's going to just be chaos at 4 p.m. with all these numbers trying to navigate everything that's happening. But today there's going to be a lot of traffic light coordination between red, green, and yellow on all these companies. All right, let's get into macro. So first piece of macro news, Marjorie Taylor Greene has bought some stocks. She bought 15K of Bitcoin, 60K of Tesla, 15K of Meta, 60K of Amazon, 45K of Johnson & Johnson. So just to keep everyone updated, Nancy Pelosi is not the only one trading. Maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene ends up becoming the next Nancy Pelosi, who knows? But she did buy these 5 assets: Bitcoin, Tesla, Amazon, Meta, Johnson & Johnson. I do like that she bought Amazon, Meta, and Tesla, just because it shows that if Congress is relatively bullish on big tech, and they're putting some money against those names, then at least there's not something glaring that they know that we don't know about big tech that could lead to some potential decline on earnings. So we'll see what happens today with those 3 companies, but she is invested in those 3. Second headline that we have to look at. So I said there would be an update on S&P 500 companies that are now beating. Last time we had about 53 companies report, which was 11% of the overall index. This time we are having 103 companies report, which, let's do the math right there. That's basically 20%, right? Yeah, 20%, 100 divided by 500. So about 20% of companies have reported. 79% of S&P 500 companies that have reported have beat on EPS. 79%. The median of those 79% beat by 6.1%, which was a surprise that the market did not expect. Again, this is really hard to imagine that earnings are bad or earnings are not good when 79%, almost 80% of the companies that have reported so far, we still have 400 left, but still 80% of companies are beating on the top and the bottom line. 91% of tech companies have beat, 79% of cyclicals, 78% of defensives, 100% of communication services, which I believe Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T reported. They beat on the top and the bottom line. I think those are the 3 names that they're referencing when it comes to communication. By the way, T-Mobile beat today, this morning. T-Mobile, I think, is up 5% in the pre-market, 7.7%. T-Mobile doesn't move like that. So T-Mobile getting a really nice boost. 84% of financials beat, 50% of real estate. That makes sense. Housing still is in a little bit of an issue. 67% of energy, 86% of healthcare, 70% of commercial, and then 100% of utilities have beat on the top and the bottom line. So, I mean, just from a pure macro perspective, I think that's relatively bullish. We got a lot of companies left to report, but as long as they continue to do what they need to do, then I don't think that's going to be the worst thing in the world going into S&P 500 earnings to end the year. Update from Tesla. So Tesla has earnings today, and they just shared a new video last night of cars driving themselves from the factory into the loading dock autonomously. Here's the video right here. I don't think there's audio in this video, but this came out late last night, I think at like 12 a.m. And really cool to see, dude. If you're an investor that literally cares about FSD as the overarching thesis when it comes to Tesla, it is nice to see the cars actually drive themselves from the lot and do it in an autonomous way. Now, Tesla's main account is also tweeting about robots. They're like tweeting memes about robots this morning. And as much as I love that they're tweeting memes about robots, the take I heard from some people is that, yeah, Tesla's definitely going to screw up earnings. Because the Tesla social media account is like trying to shift the energy to like robots. And so one could make the argument that, all right, why at 6:33 a.m. are you tweeting this tweet right here? The future will have lots of robots. Some people are like, all right, wait a second. Can we talk about earnings? Why are we talking about robots? Now, nonetheless, Elon responded, sure will, 55 minutes ago. My take on earnings, and I think it's a bit of a wild card take, but nonetheless, this is my take, is that Elon's going to pump Optimus. I think Elon might pump Optimus. I think this might happen. I think, especially if the numbers aren't that good, which I don't know at this point if the numbers are going to be good. I know they missed on deliveries. I think energy is going to be phenomenal. And then the cost of goods sold was the lowest it was ever in Q3 2024. I think at $31,000 a vehicle. If that can come down, which I'm skeptical that can come down because they had so many discounts. I got my Tesla because of 0% APR, so I don't know exactly how that number is going to play out. But if the numbers are less than amazing, which Tesla trading at a 200 PE, $1.5 trillion market cap. I think the market's expecting them to be decent. Elon's going to have to pump something. And although Tesla does dump pretty much every earnings, I think there's been one earnings in the past 5 quarters where Tesla went green, and that's when the stock was at 138. I remember this because I bought a call option at 155, and then it gapped up to 155. And then I learned what IV crush is, and I lost some money. But I think Tesla's going to have to pump something. They're either going to have to pump a $30,000 car, which hopefully is coming out in the next 6 months. They're going to have to pump unsupervised FSD in Texas and California being launched as a beta, or they're going to have to punch robots. It's one or the other. And I kind of think my wild card guess is they're going to say something about robots. I think Elon's going to mention something. I think he's going to spend some time, even if it's not any definitive, like, oh, we launched this new partnership with Walmart to get more robots. He's going to make arguments about progress they've made. And even if the numbers are coming out of his ass, as long as the street thinks, okay, so Optimus is like another growth curve for Tesla that we're not factoring in, it really depends on how confident he's going to be when saying this stuff. A lot of times Tesla trades on his emotions. And I remember 3 quarters ago, you could just tell he was bored and he didn't want to be there, and the stock was down like 15%. And the last earnings, he was pretty excited. And he wasn't like, he wasn't taking questions in a sort of nonchalant, why are you asking this question type of way. He was actually answering in an enthusiastic way. And maybe we're going to see what happens with Elon here today in the same way. Meta, 69% of you said pump, 31% said dump. So let's do Tesla, pump or dump. And see what people say. This one's even more confusing than Meta. I have no idea, dude. I have no idea. All I know is if we see a massive dump, I am buying. But I don't know if we have to get a massive dump, especially with the S&P 500 companies beating as much as they're doing in the overall market being elevated. Speaking of S&P 500 companies beating, here's another piece of macro news. The shorts have thrown in the towel. The S&P 500 ETF short interest has fallen to its lowest level in 15 years. 15 years. This is insane. I mean, like, I thought the first stat I thought was pretty bullish. For those that are just joining and missed the first stat of the day we shared, it was that $4.3 billion was entered into the NASDAQ 100 ETF QQQ on Monday after or during Nvidia's 17% decline. This is the highest level of money into that ETF since 2021. Which is just insanity. The fact that it's been a bull market for 3 years, and on the day when Nvidia dropped 600 billion, you get the biggest inflow since 2021. But then I feel like this stat is up there to be just as big in terms of the shorts throwing in the towel, and they're not shorting the S&P because they can't trust that the short is going to work out. Now, one could interpret it as bearish by saying, hey, there's too many people that are bullish. So you can make that argument that there's just way too much bullishness here. But then again, maybe there's bullishness for a reason. Maybe there is bullishness for a reason. It costs money to be short in perpetuity. That is correct. It costs money to be short in perpetuity. So we're going to see. We're going to see after the bell if the S&P 500 continues to maintain this short interest, if the NASDAQ continues to get these ETF inflows. Let's do all eyes on Nvidia for the bell. We got about 20 seconds. It's down 1.95%. 62% of you guys say dump on Tesla. Wow. All right. So we got some skeptics here on Tesla. Powell speaks later today. You got Meta, you got Microsoft, you got Tesla. It's going to be a wild, wild day in 2025. But that's why we invest for these days to see how this plays out and what the future of the economy looks like. All right, Wednesday, January 29th, the stock market, 9:30 a.m. is now open. Wake your ass up. Here we go. Nvidia is down 126.5, 1.93%. So Nvidia opens down 2% again overnight at about 12 a.m. Last night, it was up 3% at 131. Now it's at 126.5. So you're getting a little bit of a dump right here, a little bit of rejection at 127. It was ending the day at 129 yesterday, right now at 126.7. Palantir was at 81 yesterday. Palantir right here at $80.79. Not bad on Palantir. That's up about 0.5%. Planet Labs, this company beat on their earnings. They're up 13% right now. Reddit is up 2.63%. Starbucks is up 5%. Starbucks also had earnings. We're going to talk a little bit more about Starbucks in a bit because they had earnings, and we're going to talk about all the other companies that reported this morning because we had a couple of them. But Starbucks, decent earnings, beat on the top and the bottom line, and they guided for what was better than what the street thought it would be. So the street has them up 5%. They're also kind of reorganizing their menu, and that's getting the street to be excited in terms of the cost savings that Starbucks can have. Amazon, almost at all-time highs, 239. It did hit all-time highs yesterday. Google at 197. I bought 50 shares of Google yesterday at 195. So I'm into the Googs when it comes to equities. I had calls, but now we are in stock. Google right here at 197.5. Meta is down a little bit on the day, 672. MicroStrategy is up. MicroStrategy actually got upgraded to $515 by, I'm forgetting the name of the firm. I think it was Oppenheimer. I'll get it in a second. But they got upgraded by a firm that doesn't really cover crypto that much. And they decided that MicroStrategy is going to be bullish when it comes to crypto. Bitcoin right here at 102,000. Tesla right here at 394. S&P 500 at 603. The Qs at 521 on the day. AT&T's at 2472. Boeing's at 181. That's up 1.9%. General Motors, after having a 9% down day, is a little bit green to start the day. AMD getting some green. AMD was still red yesterday, getting a little bit of reprieve today, up about 2%. Palantir just went red below $80. Nvidia continues to fall, down 2.24%, now at 126.11, holding 126. We'll see if it drops below 126, back to 125. Rocket Lab did get upgraded to $32 today. I'm forgetting the name of the firm. It wasn't Citibank. It was another one. But they upgraded them to 32 today. And so Rocket Lab getting a little bit of love right here, 2.35%. They were upgraded to 35 by Citibank early last week, and that's when they pumped 30% off that upgrade. MicroStrategy right here, still green. Tesla goes red slightly. S&P goes red slightly. Nvidia, there you go, below 126, 125.9 on Nvidia, and then back to 126. It's holding 126 nicely, but it's struggling to maintain that last level right there at 125.9. SMCI at 28.25, so that's up about 0.5%. Oh, Keyblank, yes, Keyblank upgraded Rocket Lab to $32. Mizuho upgraded SoFi to 20 as well, correct. Oh, the firm that upgraded MicroStrategy, I just remembered, is Mizuho, which again, they don't really cover crypto like that, so I was surprised they actually covered MSTR. But they upgraded them as well. And then they upgraded SoFi to 20, which I think is reasonable. I think SoFi probably deserves to be 20, even if I have, even if I don't love their app that much. That's not a bear case for SoFi. That's just a reason why I, as a user, don't use the product that much. But SoFi in general did get upgraded 2 times by Needham and Mizuho to $20. And so if more upgrades come into the 20s and they continue to crush it, hopefully we get that range going into next earnings. Nvidia right here, 125.8. That's down 2.4%. Baba's up 10%. Really? Is Baba up 10%? No, it's not up 10%. It's up 3%. But I think it's up 10% over the past month. Alibaba has done incredibly well. Baba stock, 16% year to date, which is amazing. I mean, Alibaba last year barely moved until China finally stimulated. So nice to see Alibaba getting a little bit of a bid right there. Alibaba remains to be one of the most undervalued companies in the world. It just has a big risk associated with it, which starts with 3 letters, CCP. But nonetheless, these guys have like 100 or 120 billion in cash and 200 billion market cap. Like, it's kind of insane. But people are just scared to invest in them because of China. Now, the new model that Alibaba released last night that is better than DeepSeek, I think the market's up on that news on Alibaba, up 3% right here, because essentially the market's thinking, okay, Baba's going to be a competitor when it comes to AI. And if they can open source and create these models, that's an AI play that we might not have thought of before. And that's why Baba is getting the bid right here. Celsius down 1.7%. Celsius continues to get hit badly. Their earnings is going to have to show a decent number of Pepsi-related earnings growth, which went away last quarter. And so if they can show that Pepsi revenue coming back, that'll be good for them. If not, that's not going to be the best. Tempest AI is up 7%. This is the Nancy stock. This is the Nancy stock getting a little bit of love right here. Tempest up 6.5%. DJT is up 10%. So I didn't cover this news yet, so let me bring it to you guys right now. DJT bought a fintech. Yes, Donald Trump's social media company bought a fintech. And they bought it they invested $250 million in a fintech, and they are launching crypto services and ETFs via this fintech. And also, they are announcing a new brand called TruthFi, which I imagine stands for Truth Finance. And they're partnering with Schwab that allows people to invest $700 million of their cash reserves into ETFs, Bitcoin-related securities, and then customized separately managed accounts. So basically, DJT is getting a little bit of a fintech bid right here. Again, DJT, the company, does about $4 million in revenue. Market cap is about $8 billion. Obviously, it's trading off the sentiment around Trump more than anything. But now that they're expanding into fintech, I guess that's getting some momentum for them. So there you go, TruthFi when it comes to DJT. SMCI right here, down 0.5%. SoFi back to 16. There you go. SoFi back to 16. Not bad. SoFi back to 16. Lending Club had a crappy earnings. They're down 15%. Lending Club did not have a fun earnings. So it's kind of funny because a lot of the analysts that are bearish SoFi, like KBW, they're bullish Lending Club. And obviously this spread trade has gone the opposite direction. So Lending Club right here down 15%, SoFi recovering back to 16. T-Mobile, incredible earnings up 7.49%. We'll pull up a lot of these company earnings and go through them in just a second, but they beat on the top and the bottom. Communication services, it looks like it's getting a bid. AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, all of them crushing. Proving that people are signing up for internet. They're probably upgrading their internet at home and on cellular. And they're definitely not, canceling their internet, which makes sense because no one can live without the internet. Also, there's a Starlink headline on T-Mobile that happened last night. That's another thing that's probably pumping it. T-Mobile and Apple are working with Starlink to bring more broad band access across the world. That headline broke at like 9 p.m. last night. Let me just get the sentence. It is, Apple, SpaceX, and T-Mobile have been quietly collaborating to bring Starlink satellite support to iPhone users, according to Bloomberg. So if you can bring some Starlink to your Apple iPhone, not the worst thing in the world. Apple right here down about 1.2%, 235.4. Apple is down here on the day. Doug says, is T-Mobile a low-key proxy for Starlink? I don't know if it's a proxy, but it definitely is showing the benefits of Starlink. Starlink also partnered with United, which who knows? I mean, maybe it is a proxy for Starlink because United stock was up 100% last year. I could not have predicted ever United would be up 100% in a year. But they did partner with Starlink back in September, and that's when they really started moving. So who knows? Maybe Starlink has the golden touch right here. And if you partner with them, the market gets excited for the increased productivity and increased level of services you could sell with access to more broadband internet. And so T-Mobile right here up 7.5%. Nvidia getting hit down 2.7. Let's see if it can hold 125. Let's see if Nvidia can hold 125. 125.8 right here, down 2.4%. Reddit's up 1.89%. Tesla 394, that's down 1%. I like Tesla going red before earnings. I think there's a better probability of a pump. I think if it was like 420 going into earnings, it's a better probability of a dump. So not the worst thing in the world to see Tesla down right here on the day. Why is Nvidia crashing? Honestly, I don't know. I think because I think the Asml news was bullish. I think all this stuff we're find out this morning about OpenAI proving that DeepSeek stole a ton of GPUs. That's bullish because it means that you do need the computational power that Nvidia provides to be able to build their chips and to be able to build these models. But again, yesterday could have been a technical bounce, and today's a technical retracement, and it's relatively normal for this price action. Now, if we get back to 120, 118, 119, that would be like an erasure of everything it gained yesterday, which would be kind of surprising to me. I don't think that would happen, but I guess we'll see later today if that does happen. ASTS is dumping. ASTS, let's take a look at them. Yeah, why are these guys down 8%, especially when Rocket Lab's up? They already did the dilution. Did they do more dilution today? That's weird. I don't think they should be down that much on a space headline, unless there isn't any space headlines. Yeah, I don't see anything here. No, this is weird. That's weird. 8% dump is weird. ASTS dumping from Apple partnership with Starlink. That actually makes more sense. Dude, the market is so narrative driven. You find one thing, it's like these hedge fund managers are like, all right, sell this. We heard this news, buy this. Buy this, sell this. It's like it just literally moves off headlines. Any headline. Like, all right, sell that, buy this, sell that, buy this. But nonetheless, that's what happened. So yeah, that makes sense. Starlink could be a reason why ASTS is not going to get that bid with T-Mobile instead. And that theoretically could be taking it down. Nvidia, are we holding 125? Kind of. We got 50 cents before we give up 125, 44 cents. Selling pressure is still strong on Nvidia. Meta as well, down 1%. Now Meta gapped up like 8% over the past week. So I think that's reasonable. CrowdStrike as well, taking a breather from going up 8% yesterday. Vertiv is up and VST is up. Interesting. Vertiv and VST are up. They're recovering. Nvidia's down. Grab is down about 0.22%. Robinhood 49.05. Robinhood kind of chilling at that 48.49 level. Amit, what do you think about the SoundHound dilution? I didn't even know that they did dilution, but it makes sense. They're a small company. They probably need to raise some cash. Stock's at 14 though. I mean, the stock was at like $2 last year. So if you got in early, you're probably doing very well. But I wouldn't blame them for diluting. I mean, when you're this small of a company, raising money at these elevated prices is not the craziest idea. Tempest is up 10%. I don't know if there's a headline there, but Tempest getting some really strong momentum right here. This thing got hit a couple of days ago after going up 30%, but now it's holding the 50s for Tempest AI. Okay, let's look at some other company earnings. So we had T-Mobile. Let me pull that up right here. T-Mobile beat on the top and the bottom, 257 versus 238. That's a beat on EPS. And then 21.8 billion versus 21.3 billion. That's a beat on revenue. So T-Mobile continuing the trend of a beat on the top and the bottom. We had DHR that missed on revenue by 2 cents, a beat on EPS by about 100 million. So not bad. Slight beat on revenue and slight miss on EPS. You then had GD, General Dynamics. They beat on EPS, 415 versus 403, 13.3 versus 12.82 for revenue. So a beat on the top and the bottom. GD is down about 2% right now, General Dynamics, nothing too crazy, but they did get a beat on the top and the bottom line, which is good. Then you had, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Then you had ASML, which we already talked about in the morning. ASML beat on the bookings by over 50%, and that's what got the market excited. But those were the main earnings for today. After today, in the evening, we are going to get a lot more earnings. Also, the NASDAQ had earnings today as well. They are a company listed on the NASDAQ. And they are down 5.7%. I think they beat on the top and the bottom, but their guidance was a little low. I'll get those exact numbers. But those guys are down 5.8%. I didn't know the NASDAQ's a $43 billion company. I think they make most of their money through fees, if I'm not wrong. I've never studied the NASDAQ as a company. Maybe it's one to dive into, but pretty large company, 50 billion. And I think most of their money comes from listing fees, if I'm not wrong. But they are down right here, 5%. NVIDIA 124. Wow. Are we actually dipping here on NVIDIA? 120. Wow. 124.7. Market's giving back some of the gains. If it goes below 124, that's when you're challenging the $3 trillion market cap. I guess we'll see if that happens. 124.9 on NVIDIA. Why is Snowflake down? Good question. I don't know. I guess all of SaaS was up a lot yesterday. Let's see if SaaS as a sector is coming down. Yeah, all of SaaS is down. Snowflake is down because all of SaaS is down. I think what this is the pre-tech earnings jitters. This happens pretty much every time before tech earnings. You tend to get a lot of people scared and they pull out of the market. I mean, the fact that money market funds went up last week before Trump got inaugurated, people were scared and they put some money on the sidelines. So that might be happening today as well. CrowdStrike, Intuit, Twilio, GitLab, Atlassian, Oracle, Salesforce, Palantir. Now, granted, a lot of these names were up like 3 to 4% yesterday. So it makes sense. It's a healthy retracement, but it's also probably a little bit of fear because if Meta or Microsoft don't crush, in particular for the SaaS names, that's what affects them more. Really, Microsoft with Azure cloud demand, because if Microsoft doesn't have as much cloud demand, a lot of the cloud demand is coming from the software companies. And so when you kind of put 2 and 2 together, you start asking, do the software companies have as much demand if they're not paying for Azure? Now, granted, I think Azure is going to crush it. I think they're going to grow at 30% like they have been for the past couple of years. But the guidance is going to be important for Microsoft. Crypto stocks are also down. Robinhood down 1.3%. Bitcoin at 102. Coinbase is up a little bit. They got upgrades today to 290 from 270. CleanSpark right here, $10. That's flat. The Bitcoin miners, again, have not been a good trade in 2024, and they have not been a good trade in 2025 either. Marathon right here, $18. Riots at 11. Bitcoin 102. And then MicroStrategy is slightly green at 337 here right now. Let's check on our quantum and spec names. They are half green, half red. Qubit is down 1.76%. IONQ's up. Rigetti's up. D-Wave is slightly down. Faraday Future is up 10%. Archer's up a little bit. Big Bear's up a little bit. SoundHound is down. MicroStrategy is up. GameStop and AMC are down. So spec is kind of 50-50 here in terms of green versus red. And then DJT, again, that's expanding into the fintech world. They are up 7.9% on the day. Palantir, I think, is down 2%. Yeah, Palantir down about 2.03%. Here right now. What about energy infrastructure? Let's look at that. Is that catching a little bit of a bid? We have all of them green. Yes, Next Decade is green, Enbridge is green, ET is green, Kinder Morgan is green. Not crazy green, but a little green. And then all of our Mag 7s are, I think, red, except for, no, all of them are red. Apple, Microsoft, Meta, Google, Amazon, Nvidia, Tesla, all of them are red. All of them are red. Yeah, where's Oklo? Where's Oklo? Oklo's green as well, up 3%. Interesting. So we got NVIDIA. Oh, there you go. NVIDIA, nice little green candle to 125. I don't know. I think it's very early. We got to see how NVIDIA plays this out. Maybe that was the dip for the day, 124.50. But it's holding that 124, 126 level, like even in that range. So at least it's encouraging to see it not tread all the way back down to the 116s. When are Tesla earnings? At 4 p.m. today? 4:10 probably is when the results come out. I think Meta comes out at 4:05. Microsoft tends to be at 4:05. So I think we'll get Meta and Microsoft before Tesla, but then we will get Tesla. Chris says, add VG to the liquefied natural gas to the energy infrastructure play. All right, let's add those to the list. VG is a company that just went public, Venture Global, and they are also in the energy infrastructure space, and we'll add Cheniere Energy as well. I know that's another big one. So we'll keep up with these two names as well. VG, actually, I think, do they have a crappy IPO, if I'm not wrong? VG, they are down. I think they're down like 20%. So their IPO wasn't the best, if I'm not wrong. Where do they IPO at? They IPO'd at 25. Yeah, they're at 20. All right. So they're down a bit from their IPO. Markets, I guess, trying to understand their business model entirely. But that one is down. ET and Enbridge right here are up about 0.5% on the day. Yeah, let's add VST and VRT to the list as well. VST and VRT. Let's add those to the list. AMD, is AMD up? AMD is up slightly, even though Nvidia is down. Chris says they were originally going to list at 60, then 25, then 20. Yeah, it looks. I guess the bankers didn't think they had enough demand for prices at 60. That tends to happen on a lot of these IPOs. It's like if the bankers can't find enough demand for buying at these, which is why 2021 was crazy, because the bankers would set any damn price. Like people bought Robinhood at a freaking $40 billion market cap on IPO. I mean, that's why banks made so much money in 21. They were making so many fees off the IPO underwriting. It was ridiculous. And ironically, we haven't had any IPOs yet. I know we're only 29 days into the year, but we have not seen the flurry of IPOs people talked about. So hopefully it starts happening. But hopefully those IPOs are also appropriately priced, because I don't want to pay $50 billion for Discord. That would not be fun to do. But if you can get Discord at $15 billion, I feel like, I don't know the numbers, but just off the bat, it sounds a bit more reasonable and less egregious than some of these 2021 IPOs that got priced at anything. Oh yeah, GEV. Let's add GEV, GE Veranova, to this list as well. Are they up today? They are up today. Jason said he bought the stock when it got hit on the Nvidia Black Swan Monday event. Nvidia back to 126. All right, showing some strength, showing a little bit of strength right here. Down 2%. Let's see if it can go green. Not bad. Not bad at all. Showing a little bit of strength, up from 124.5. What is Elon going to say when he is asked about the impact of the EV credit going away? I think Elon's going to say the same thing he said a while ago, which is that he doesn't care. I mean, we remember Elon's thoughts on subsidies. He, in general, was a fan of getting rid of all subsidies. Again, I think Elon does feel like he's playing a lot of 4D chess if we can get rid of the overall subsidies, because Rivian, Polestar, all those companies won't benefit from it. But look, although that's a 4D chess argument, logically, I would not have bought my Tesla without the EV tax credit. So that's why in November, I was really quick to do it, dude. I made the decision super quick, because as soon as Trump got elected, I was like, all right, there's a good shot this goes away. And they have 0% APR. But I would just imagine there's a lot of people throughout the world, Rock Lab right here, 2953, that are also, they need an incentive to buy an expensive car. Like $45,000, $50,000 for a car is not a small amount of money. Especially when, if you can get a used car for $25,000. So it's like that $75 credit, $7,500 credit was definitely an incentive to get there. Let's rewind to that video, because it's been a while since we heard it, and we have earnings coming up today. So maybe Elon echoes the same statements. But here's what Elon said a couple of years ago on that $7,500 EV credit.
We don't need the $7,500 tax credit. I would say, honestly, I would just can this whole bill. Don't pass it. That's my recommendation.
What about the support though for the charging network? I mean, there are parts of this bill and no.
No, I mean, do we need support for gas stations? We don't. So there's no need for this for support for a charging network. I would delete it. Delete.
Okay. All right.
I'm literally saying get rid of all subsidies. But also for oil and gas.
If you think about also how this affects your competitors, is that impact how some of your view on this?
I mean,
Yes. He's not going to say it, but yes.
Maybe they need it. I don't know. But I think just generally, I'm in favor of deleting subsidies. I mean, when we started Tesla, there were no EV subsidies at all, and gasoline was super cheap. We did not anticipate any subsidies. That came later, and that came the $7,500 tax credit came as a result not of Tesla activity, but of General Motors lobbying for it. So I would just say just delete them all.
All right, but there's some other good things in this bill that some would argue. I mean, a lot of money earmarked for R&D. Would you want to put that towards something?
No.
Okay.
As you can see, Elon is not a fan of any of these credits. Sorry, guys, about the sound. Sometimes you get a video on Twitter and the sound is not amazing right here. To see, this is where we need AI. This is where StreamYard needs to have some AI functionality and be like, okay, we can recognize the sound is low. Let's use some AI and bump up the sound. Like these are practical use cases of AI that we actually need in our day-to-day lives, because I didn't know that video didn't have that good sound, but it's just a random video that you find. But nonetheless, Elon's argument was that, hey, I'm against subsidies in general, so why would I need subsidies for EVs? Now, I think there's a little bit of bravado coming from Elon, because his argument is, hey, Teslas are so good, you don't need a subsidy to buy it. Meaning, by the way, T-Mobile up 8%, incredible. The argument being, hey, Rivians suck, Polestar suck, Lucid sucks, but Teslas are great, and people would rather spend a good chunk of cash on a really good vehicle over a crappy vehicle, even if they don't get $7,500 off. And I think that argument's okay. The problem is, for the average person like myself, that is not, super, super, super high net worth, but I can make the monthly payments if you give me a little bit of help. $7,500 off it's enough help for me. I mean, even if it was $5,000 off, that's enough for me to pull the trigger. But if you take that away, it gets harder to justify it, knowing that you could get, something for a lot cheaper. I mean, now granted, all my experience with FSD, I can't imagine going back to a regular car, dude, because I don't drive anymore. I don't drive. The robot drives me, which is insane. But yeah, to get people to even have that experience, you need to incentivize them. And that kind of is the goal of Tesla, right? Let's make the car cheap, but let's get people into the car so they pay the $8,000 for the software. It's just going to be a question of if that thesis plays out this year, if they get rid of the tax credit. Royal Caribbean right here up 2%. Snapchat's up 1/3%, or actually 1%, 11.30. And then Target right here up 0.07%. You guys are saying Canada cut their rates. Is that true? Did Canada cut their rates? Canada cut their rates, baby. Canada cut its key interest rate by 25 bips. Wow. Canada cut their rates. JPow's not going to cut our rates today, but at least Canada is beginning to cut his rates, or their rates. Canada cut interest rate 25 bips to 3% in January 2025, as markets expected to mark 200 bips in rate cuts since the start of the cutting cycle in 2024. In the meantime, the central bank also announced the end of quantitative tightening. Wow. We're getting back to QE. And will restart asset purchases in early March to support liquidity and traction of economic activity. Holy crap. Okay, there you go. QE is back, baby, inside of Canada. Dude, if JPow said we're going to start repurchasing assets from the central bank, oh my God, stocks would they would be up heavy. That's probably not going to happen anytime soon, because we are gung-ho about inflation getting to 2%, but still not too bad. So the central bank also noted that CPI converged to the 2% mark. So the only reason they're doing this is because they think they've defeated inflation and they got it back to 2%. We have not done that yet. We're at 2.9% headline. And until we get there, I think it's going to be hard to get the central bank to start doing some QE again. But it'd be nice. It'd be nice if we get there. Call Tanner. Dude, the biggest Canadian company I know, or the one that has the most coverage, is Shopify, which was up 10% yesterday. But I don't know. Is this going to massively increase tons of liquidity for Canadian stocks? Also, I don't know, Tim Hortons was public. Did you guys know that? Tim Hortons went public in 2006. I did not know Tim Hortons went public. But yeah, Tim Hortons, I guess the Canadian version of Starbucks to an extent. People would say it's better than Starbucks. They went public. You got Pouncer right here with a tweet as well. So Pouncer just tweeted, in 2018, the U.S. Army partnered with Pouncer to build Vantage. The platform recovered over 3.3 billion of unliquidated obligations in 1 year. Now, this is not a new stat. We knew about this already. This came out in a press release about I would say 8 months ago, that Pouncer saved the U.S. Army about $4 billion with Vantage. So I'm happy that they're tweeting it here, but it's not like a new stat or any like big headline that's different. I think now Pouncer is getting ready for earnings, and in the next 3 days, we're going to see what the results look like. I know a lot of people are antsy because we didn't get a ton of headlines or PRs into January, which I know is a bit different for Pouncer. Usually they do like 4 or 5 PRs going into the first month of the year. And that's happened for the past couple of years. But I think they're just head down working. And, you know, I don't think they have a need to like prove the stock deserves to be higher or anything and put out these PRs. I think they're just working. And I think it comes down to what is the guidance, because this thing either goes up or goes down based on 2025 guidance. And no matter how many press releases they put out with different companies or the Army or the military, we need good guidance. We need upwards of 35 to 40% growth, or at least the inclination that we're going to get that. And in 4 days, we will find out how that plays out. But if we get it, would not be the worst thing for Pouncer. Again, I did a video last night about how DeepSeek affects Pouncer. You guys can watch it. I'm not going to go super deep into it, but my thesis there was that the reason Pouncer gets the premium it's getting is because if DeepSeek comes to the conclusion, or gets the market to come to the conclusion, that the models are a commodity, then the value exists in the operational infrastructure of those models, which obviously ends up becoming a company. And so it seems like, you know, that's why Pouncer continues to get the bid. We got Palmer Luckey on Fox Business. He's probably talking about DeepSeek and China. Let's get his thoughts on what's going on here.
What do you think of this DeepSeek Chinese chatbot? And do you believe that it's somehow the holy grail now, and that everything else made in the USA when it comes to AI chatbots should be tossed by the wayside?
Well, it's been pretty interesting getting to comment on AI stuff so frequently lately. You know, Anduril started as an AI company almost 8 years ago. The acronym of our company, Anduril Industries, is AI. And when we started Anduril, AI was kind of a dirty word. It was always 5 years in the future, never here.
Right.
And obviously now we're in a race against China to develop artificial intelligence. It's going to define a lot of our future economy. Now with DeepSeek specifically, I don't really buy into a lot of it. You get a lot of media right now about how they spent just $5 million to train this model that is competitive or beating a lot of U.S. options. First of all, isn't true. They're not covering a lot of the costs. That's not the cost of both of the models that they developed. And I think the problem is they put out that number specifically to harm U.S. companies. You had a lot of useful idiots in U.S. media kind of just mindlessly reporting that that's the case. And China, neither China nor the media nor DeepSeek has any kind of incentive to correct the record, as a lot of U.S. companies like Nvidia crashed to the tunes of hundreds of billions of dollars. So look, it's a really impressive step. They've definitely made some technological innovations, but I don't think that people should take what they're saying at face value. And they should realize that there are a lot of people cheering for the United States to fail. There's people who are clearly cheering for our tech companies to fail, and obviously President Trump to fail. It's a shame that so many of them are in the United States.
Yeah, I mean, we said at the top of the show yesterday, what is this tech wreck? You're going to believe this? Okay, we don't know anything about the cost assumptions, about the architecture or the algorithms.
And it's not even that they're lying. Like, you got to realize that the 5 million number that's out there is for one version of the model. The other more advanced version, they haven't put out any information on what it costs to train, but you have a lot of people jumping onto that 5 million number, reporting it as if that is relevant to the whole thing, ignoring a lot of the infrastructure costs, the R&D costs. There's a reason they put out the news that way. And if the stock market is any indication, it's accomplishing exactly what they hope to. So look, we can recognize that Chinese AI is a real competitive threat without losing our minds over it and falling for CCP propaganda.
What do you guys think? You agree? You're messing with that take, or you think that take is kind of off? What do you guys think?
Talk about propaganda when it comes to Russia. Today, Vladimir Putin came out, the president of Russia, and said, we are going to be one of the world's leaders in drone manufacturing by 2030. He's obviously been stung by what Ukraine has been able to do. You are at the heart of drone manufacturing, whether it's by land or sea or air. Give me a sense of what is going to happen at this Columbus, Ohio plant and how you guys are the leaders here.
Well, the Columbus, Ohio plant is really the realization of things that we've been working on for many years. You know, our very first pitch deck that we gave to investors 8 years ago included a specific quote from Vladimir Putin, where he was speaking at a technical college. And he said, translated from Russian, the country that wins in the sphere of artificial intelligence will become the ruler of the entire world. And so this is not Putin looking at asymmetrical technologies like AI or drones and just now realizing that it's important for his own country. He's been really ahead of the curve. He was ahead of this back when a lot of people, even in the tech industry, thought that it was a waste of time and that it was certainly not going to be the future of defense on this kind of timeline. Putin's a pretty sharp guy in this area, and he understands that mass scale manufacturing of these types of systems is important. Our Columbus facility is really about hyperscaling manufacturing of exactly that type of system, low cost, high powered AI systems that are going to be able to deter wars around the world and, if necessary, win them swiftly.
I see. So it's the carry a big stick theory, but you're going to be making these. How quickly can you ramp up before we go, Palmer? Because right now it's been said that if we had to be in a war with, say, for example, China, we'd run out of munitions in 8 days.
It's a huge problem in the United States is that we just do not have enough weapons. We don't have enough missiles. We don't have enough aircraft. We don't have enough submarines, and we have not set ourselves on a path to solve those problems. I think President Trump has really made this a priority to get back to reindustrialization of our defense industrial base, to get to higher scale manufacturing that can deter China with a strength through power, a peace through strength posture. We're going to be fully operational at Arsenal 1, our new factory, in 2026. We're going to be having a bunch.
So this is very similar to what Alex Karp-Palantir has been saying, right? This idea of peace through strength. And peace through strength, I think, personally, it's a philosophy I agree with. I think, if you believe in any level of American defense, you have to believe in that idea as well. And I actually think that is kind of the potential bid that hits Palantir stock as well as we get more government deals when Trump really ramps up reindustrialization, because a lot of that reindustrialization is not just building the raw weapons, but it's having the software that is necessary to be able to meaningfully build a platform for those weapons. I mean, the case in point right here, Palantir doesn't exactly work with Tesla, but they work with Panasonic Energy North America that builds the batteries for Tesla, and they are integrated into their Sparks, Nevada factory. So you got a digital smart factory using Palantir software to better make the batteries more efficiently for Tesla. I would imagine maybe there's some partnership with Palantir and Anduril in the future in that Ohio facility. Who knows if that's the case, but Palantir and Anduril have partnered in the past. And if there's any level of massive reindustrialization in terms of really building up American defense, building up artillery, building up machinery, building up all the things that are necessary to be ready if we went into a war, it's not just going to be hardware. There's going to have to be some level of software integrated into that. And Anduril, one of the reasons it's getting a lot of contracts over the Lockheed Martins of the world is because of Lattice. Lattice is their software platform that helps them build on top of the existing ecosystem of infrastructure they have. And quite frankly, their margins aren't the best for a hardware company, because when you're a hardware company, your margins kind of suck. But they are better from what I've seen compared to the Raytheons of the world, because that software Lattice platform does give them a bit of an advantage. Jason says they are def using warp speed. Well, I think they are. No, we definitely know this for a fact, because at DevCon, I think they presented and they said they were one of the first people using warp speed as well. So yeah, I forgot to mention that. So we definitely know there is an integration of what Palantir is doing via the warp speed, which is essentially Palantir's reindustrialization of America manufacturing operating system. That in conjunction with Anduril makes a lot of sense. And I think there's a world where you start to see some momentum, not only on a company like Anduril, but obviously also on Palantir, because they work with Anduril. Speaking of Palantir, here's a video we found last night. Arnie found this video, and it's a hell of a video. Cleveland Clinic has been working with Palantir for the past 3-4 years now. Here's the CEO of Cleveland Clinic explaining how that partnership has been going with Palantir.
Each solution we develop will be safe, ethical, and capable of being used at scale. With Palantir, we created a digital twin of our most complex hospital. The goal was to simplify every variable in moving patients through the hospital and make it seamless. This tool which is now being used by other healthcare systems, is the first commercially viable AI product co-developed by Cleveland Clinic. Take a look.
Running a hospital is complex. Physicians, nurses, hospitals, outpatient centers, operating rooms. More than 30,000 patient encounters every day. We are trying to orchestrate all of these moving parts, and they all need to go perfectly.
Before we continue with the video, 30,000 patients a day, thousands of hospitals. This is why Karp's been saying, why are we talking about LLMs? Why are we not talking about how we can use them to save lives in a hospital? A, that's probably valuable from a financial perspective. B, that's valuable on a life or death perspective. C, that's where AI actually becomes meaningful in the real world. And this is just another example of why Palantir is catching that bid from the market.
Historically, it's done through spreadsheets, Post-its, phone calls, text messages. With Palantir, we were able to pull all of the data into a single place, the virtual command center that will model the entirety of hospital operations. We have 3 modules today.
Hospital 360 has transformed how we're able to place patients in beds. We're able to do it in a quicker, more efficient way. I can see the predicted number of patients coming in for the day by building, and I can see the number of predicted discharges coming out, and I can see the number of patients who are waiting, either in the emergency department or patients having surgery who need beds. It's live in real time. It's learning our data. It's reading the patient's notes and saying that's a potential discharge.
The nurse staffing matrix, you can actually see where you're overstaffed, where you're understaffed. Everybody had a trusted view of the patient census and the nurse allocation. It results in managing nurse assignments efficiently and effectively, and in a way that's more predictable and leads to nurse manager satisfaction. OR utilization, the objective function is how do we maximize the number of patients and procedures that we can do through each one of our operating rooms. We're trying to make a smart system, trying to model the problem properly. That's work in progress.
This is another way we're innovating around patient care. It's all about helping more people.
It's been transformative, and it just shows you the potential one could imagine managing from ICUs to step-down units to floors to set the standard for being the best-run hospital in the world. That's the ambition.
I think that was important to show, bro, because like when it comes down to Palantir's actual operational use cases, there's like a real use case. There's a real implementation, NVIDIA right here, 125.3, of Palantir and AI software systems being used in a way that is not just an LLM. And I'll put the link right here in the chat for anyone that wants to send this to their friends that have always asked, what does Palantir do? They save lives. I mean, you heard what some of those nurses were saying in terms of how they can get patients in and out of those hospitals quicker than ever. This is why, I know people like where's Palantir's PR for the year? They haven't had a PR yet. It's not about the PR, bro. It's about what are they doing? And I think on earnings, we're going to get some real analysis from Karp, who's probably happy that everyone's waking up to the fact that LLMs don't matter. And he's going to talk about what the Cleveland Clinic CEO just talked about, which is that you need to implement these models if you're going to say that you're an AI company, not just build the models. And if Palantir is one of the only companies doing that, then I think we're going to get some more momentum. AMD right here, 2.7%. Palantir is down a little bit on the day, 1.7%. Shopify down about 0.14%. Nvidia down 2.4%. Where is Snapchat? Snapchat 3%. Okay, there we go. Got a little bit of a move on Snappy Chat. I do have a swing trade on this one with 500 shares bought at 1070. Targets about $14, which is a bit aggressive, I think, on Snapchat, but we'll see if we can get there. Snapchat right here, 2.5% on the day. United Airlines up 1.3%. Apple's down a little bit. Tempest AI up 5%. And then SoFi goes green, 1628 on the day. Rocket Lab as well going green, 29.95. That is almost at 30. And then Hoodie going green as well, 49.50. Not bad. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. But anyway, yeah, when it comes to Palantir, look, I just think there's so much momentum, and I think I'm happy the street's waking up to the fact that models don't matter as much as results. Now we just need the growth, dude. Now we just need the growth. If we can get the growth, if we can get the numbers, this is going to be fun. There's going to be a fun earnings because all the sentiment's going to be there. Karp's going to walk in and he's going to just be like, I told y'all, it's never about the models. It was about what you do with them. But he's going to say it in an intellectual way, bro. He's going to be like, well, the existential reality of how we conceptualize the nature of models means that when we interrogate the nature of the simultaneous multifunctional modals of how we, he's going to go into that. And then Western values is going to come up. Somebody's like, well, the Western values of blah, 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 blah. And everyone's going to be like, damn, this guy's smart. We're buying this stock. And then if they can get the growth to back it up, that's going to be good as well. Grab, is Grab going green? Grab, where are we at on Grab? 464. Okay, 2% on Grab. 2% on Grab. Not bad on Grab. Look, I think Grab's going to have good earnings. There was a couple of YouTube channels that started making some videos about Grab last night. And I was like, oh, we got retail that's coming in. And they're starting to see some momentum in the stock. I think this story is going to be so simple. I think if they crush earnings, they gap up to 550, you're going to get a lot of retail that's like, wait a second, Grab? This is like a no-brainer. And then it's going to get upgraded to 7 and 8. And then by the end of the year, hopefully we get some upgrades in the $10 range. And then I think retail is going to get in. And I think it's going to be like a hood story that's not as explosive, but still a story that's pretty good, especially given they're trading at 30% cash. But similar to Palantir, we need really good Q4 results in order to make this play out. What would be the max if Palantir beats earnings? Well, Palantir moves like 20% on earnings, so it could get to 93, 94 if they really crush on earnings. Am I expecting that? Probably not. I think Palantir's extended already, right? So they're gonna have to seriously crush earnings, and I just don't expect an Nvidia quarter yet. I expect a good quarter, not an Nvidia quarter. I think that's more Q3, Q4. But if it's a decent quarter, I think we stay at these levels, maybe gap up to 85, break that all-time high. If not, if we gap even below 5 or 7%, I think that's not horrible. And by the way, if we do go down 20%, we're going to be back to where we were back in January at where we were at early January 65, which is like, okay, cool, 65. Who cares, right? Yeah, either down to 63 or up to 92. That's kind of the technical range that Jason laid out last night as well. So I wouldn't care if it's at 65 or 90. And if it's at 65, I'd be buying. What time are you going to stream this afternoon? 2:25 or 2:20 Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Eastern. I'll be streaming live. Grab's earnings is late February. I think February 20th. So they will be later in the month. I'll be live at 7 p.m. because they're in Singapore. So it'll be like a late night stream for Grab. But their earnings are going to be late that day in the US. We have Meta, Microsoft, and Tesla tonight. Are you hedging for Palantir earnings? No. We are going in raw. No protection. Which, by the way, that's a good segue to what Doge is doing. So this is what the Trump administration did last night. They are offering 2 million federal workers a chance to take a deferred resignation with a severance package of 8 months of pay and benefits. 5 to 10% of the workforce is estimated to quit, which could lead to around $100 billion in savings. And the reason I said it's a good segue is because Elon is not only, getting the Trump administration to start doing these things that are a bit more friendly in terms of cost savings to the tax dollar, but not as friendly to federal workers. But Doge canceled a $50 million payment to Gaza for condoms. We were going to give Gaza $50 million for condoms, and Doge canceled that last night. So it's like, I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about that, but you definitely can't say Elon's not trying to find different avenues to save some money. And one of those ways is by canceling condom shipments to Gaza. Here's the world debt clock. They now have a Doge clock right here. And as you can see right here, the Doge clock so far is saving $1 billion a day in the United States. How did they get to this number? It's all the things they're not spending on and all the things they're canceling is what they're doing. So this is what Doge wrote right here. Doge is saving the federal government approximately $1 billion a day, mostly from stopping the hiring of people into unnecessary positions, deletion of DEI, and stopping improper payments to foreign organizations, all consistent with the president's executive orders. It's a good start, though this number needs to increase to $3 billion a day. If Elon can save the government $3 billion a day, which I think is going to be very hard to get there, but they're already at $1 billion based on what they're saying right here. Dude, that'd be pretty damn good. That'd be pretty incredible. And again, Trump put out that statement last night that if you want to work for the federal government, you have to show up in work. If not, you're going to get an 8-month severance, which is actually a very juicy severance package. But essentially, they're not playing around. They're like, hey, either you come into work or you don't come into work if you work at the federal government. Now, I have some federal employee friends. They think it's kind of stupid because a lot of them think they can do their job from home, just like a lot of tech workers probably think they don't need to come into office because they can do their job at home as well. But Trump said we're 5 years past COVID and just 6% of federal employees work full-time in office. This is unacceptable. And as a result, he's offered to buy them out of their contracts here today. So look, whether you like these policies or not, at the end of the day, we have to cut costs somewhere. Cutting costs is not fun. Just like buying the dip is not fun. Buying the dip on Nvidia at 119 is not fun. You just gotta suck it up and buy it. So is cutting spending costs. It's always going to be hard to cut costs in certain areas, but eventually you have to cut them in some places to try to get some level of cost eradication. Okay, we have RFK testifying. We'll listen to a little bit right now. I think he's on his opening statement. Let's listen to like a couple minutes of this, and then we'll get back into some market news. But he is going through his Senate confirmation here today.
Ranking Member Wyden and members of this distinguished committee. I'm humbled to be sitting here today as President Trump's nominee to oversee the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. I want to thank President Trump for entrusting me to deliver on his promise to make America healthy again. I also want to thank Cheryl and Kik and Bobby and all of my other children who are here today and all the many members of my large extended family for the love that they have so generously shared.
Okay, so he's not saying anything really important right now. He's just giving his opening statement. We will get back to that later. That is going to be a wild 6 hours for people in Congress to listen to because, look, at the end of the day, I mean, his voice is a little tough to listen to. It is what it is, you know. I like RFK, but it's tough to listen to him talk for a lot. I mean, people who listen to his 4-hour Joe Rogan podcast, I could not get through that, bro. It was a little tough to listen to that. But we'll try to get some good clips of him speaking on certain issues that we care about. Nvidia giving up 125, 124.3. 124.3. David says, bro, that's how we feel in this stream. Oh my gosh. Dude, could you guys imagine if I like had a real Indian accent or something like that? Like if I was actually from India and I moved to America, I wasn't born here. So I had could you imagine this whole stream in an Indian accent? That would be kind of wild. I have a horrible Indian accent. It's so bad, dude. It's so bad. Like I try to do an Indian accent and Indians are like, dude, don't even like, you're just a disgrace to us right now. You can't do it. But I was born in the US and I don't know. I never really learned. I mean, I know Hindi, but not as well as I should know Hindi. No, I'm not going to do the accent, bro. It's so bad. It's so freaking bad, dude. It's not good. It's like not good at all. You know, I say it's not bad at all. This one's not good at all. Like it's so bad, bro. Because I have a bunch of friends who are Indian, and I'll do an accent in front of them. They're like, dude, you're like, just don't even try, dude. You can't do this shit. And my dad has an accent because my dad was born in India. My dad has a legit accent, but I don't. Yeah, AMD right here up 2.76%. Nvidia continues to get hit, down 3.2%. Was not able to hold 125s. Oh my God, bro. Everyone's saying do it. What do I say? The only thing I can say is what Apu says from Simpsons. All right, I'm going to try it, but it's bad, bro. It's going to be so bad. It's going to be so bad. Okay? What do they say? What is he? He's like, okay, it'll be a simple one, right? When he's like, thank you, come again. All right, I'm going to try to say thank you, come again in Hindi or in Indian accent. It's going to be so bad, though. It's going to be, yeah, thank you, please come again. All right, here we go. Dude, it's going to be so bad. It's going to be so, okay. I can't even do it. It's going to be so bad. Dude, it doesn't even sound like it's Indian accent. It just sounds like an idiot who's trying to act Indian, even though he is Indian, but he's not able to be Indian. Like, it's so bad. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Thank you. See, this is stupid, dude. See, like, I can't even get to the point where I'm like, thank you, come again. See, like, that's not an Indian accent. That sucks. That's not an Indian accent. It's horrible. It's not even a real Indian accent. I'm telling you, I can't do it. I'm not like, I'm too Americanized. See, look, it's a white guy accent trying to be Indian. It's so bad, bro. It's not real. It's that you're not even trying. No, I am trying. That's the sad part. I am trying. That's why it's bad. I am trying. I can't do it. I don't know how to do it, dude. I don't know how to do it. I don't know. I just suck at it. That's why I didn't want to do it. I told you guys I didn't want to do it because I don't know how to freaking do it. I don't know how to speak on an Indian accent. Maybe one day I'll learn. Maybe one day I'll learn how to do it. That just says I'm white and I can do a better accent. Yeah, probably you can. I can't get canceled for this. I'm Indian. There's no way you can cancel me for this. That would be ridiculous. I hope. Hopefully not. Who knows? We'll find out. Thank you. Come again. See, like that's not even Indian, bro. That's like, it's just like, all right, let's get back to Tesla. It's so bad. It's so bad.
Meta after the bell, and then Apple tomorrow.
Has a buy rating and a 404 target. George, always good to talk to you. Thanks for the time this morning.
Thanks for having me, Carl.
Been a lot of whispers about buy-side estimates on growth being closer to 10 than 20, and some expectations that Musk will have to address that somehow tonight?
Absolutely. So there are a few key things that we're watching. First, like you mentioned, 20 to 30% growth in deliveries. Let's see if they'll do that. But we will say that the new Model Y looks spectacular, and they have promised a couple new models. Obviously, margins are really important. But the sneaky, really interesting thing that we're looking for is Elon Musk's thoughts on DeepSeek and what that means for Tesla's massive investment in data centers and NVIDIA chips. And it's really also, as a part of that category.
I don't think DeepSeek's going to impact Tesla's spend. And if Tesla says they're reducing spend because of DeepSeek, that would be something else. But I really doubt that that's going to be the case.
Very, very important are FSD take rates, full self-driving. How many people are opting to buy the AI software, the autonomous software that Tesla's offering?
And I assume you believe that this re-rating and the cost element of all of that is positive, is bullish for the industry, for tech at large, and for Tesla in particular.
It's really important to your point, but we would argue actually what's even more important than the power and the GPUs needed to build AI infrastructure is the ultimate viability of the AI business models that are in theory geared to justify the dollars being allocated to power them. You know, like Tesla has voraciously been consuming NVIDIA chips and is the leader in real world AI. But we would argue that FSD take rates are a really good proxy on the broader success of AI business models. And so far, those FSD take rates are okay, not great. And we are very bullish on autonomy long-term, to be clear. But if you recall, the downfall of many communications-related stocks in 2000 was largely due to the fact of businesses failing to justify the significant CapEx that they were building out. So it's really important to know not only how much they're investing, but how viable the business models are. And
yeah, I mean, look, he obviously has a point that we need to get the ROI justified on the CapEx spend. But come on, bro. It's Rocket Lab, by the way, up 5%. It's very hard to imagine that freaking Tesla's going to stop spending to build FSD because of DeepSeek. And if that somehow happens today, bro, Meta, Microsoft, Elon come out and they say DeepSeek's a threat to how much we're spending on CapEx. I don't know, dude. That would be a hell of a headline. But I think the probability of that is low. Rocket Lab right here up 4.74%. In general, I think what we need to see from Tesla today is an update on that $30,000 car. If they give any meaningful update on that, then I think it would be exciting. But that's what we're going to have to wait to see later today. Amit sounds Indian when he says Volkswagen. Dude, I told you guys, I have a bad accent. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do the Indian accent. I don't know. I grew up with a bunch of Indians in America, but like I grew up in America. I went to American schools. Like I talked to American kids. I didn't. If I grew up in India, I would have an accent, but I didn't grow up in India. I grew up in America. So I don't know. It's just hard for me to have an accent. But it's funny for you guys to laugh at me try. Like I told you guys, I can't do it, dude. I would have to be like drunk or something to have a really good accent. I'm just so bad at doing it. Naaman, thank you for the $5 super chat. Amit, as someone who's also born here, my Indian accent sucks and I get made fun of by my cousins all the time. Totally relatable. See, thank you. I have someone on my side, dude. My sister can't do it either, bro. We just don't have accents because we were born in America And we grew up with American kids. We talked in English our whole life. And so, yeah, we kind of just suck at the accents. But then again, the accent's not like useful in any meaningful way, unless I was going to become a comedian. Russell Peters, that guy can do an accent. Oh my goodness. Russell Peters, dude. Russell freaking Peters. Talk about an Indian accent. And he's actually American. So he doesn't, it's not like he was born in India, but he can do that shit incredibly well. Amit, when are you doing a United Kingdom meetup? Hopefully in the summer. Hopefully in the summer. But the Bay Area meetup is definitely happening in February. And I'm going to send the link soon for the Telegram for everyone can join. I'll give details probably by this Saturday. All the details will be out this Saturday. NVIDIA right here, 124.03. But Bay Area is happening in February. And then the UK hopefully in the summer. Oh yeah, Russell Peters is Canadian. Sorry, he's Canadian. You're right. But see, even Canada has a good, Canadians have a good advantage because Brampton is like filled with Indians. So at least, you have some, and New Jersey's filled with Indians too. I can't lie. Like I'm in New Jersey, there's a lot of Indians, but it's not enough to develop an accent. All right, 123.8 on Nvidia, down a full 4%. So Nvidia's not getting any sense of love right here. Amit, where was your father born in India? New Delhi. He was born in New Delhi. So was my mom. 123.7. Wow, dude. Down 4%. Nvidia getting nuked right here. 123.8. I'm going to buy some Nvidia. I'm buying it. I'm buying 25 shares right here. Let's do it. Let's do it. To buy 25. Here we go. We will now have 250 shares of Nvidia. All right, 123.79. There we go. By the way, you see the new colors on Robinhood? They updated the app yesterday. They made it so much better, dude. They got rid of that stupid neon green. It's like a really nice green now. I think they heard everyone complaining about the neon green, and so it actually looks nice now. But there we go. We got some more Nvidia. So now we have 250 shares of Nvidia at an average cost of $128.44. There you go. I don't know, dude. The more I hear about the AI compute thesis, the more I think this is so stupid for this drop. And the more I think NVIDIA is just going to crush on earnings. So I guess we'll see. We have a few weeks left to see what happens. Now, if Zucks messes it up today and says he's not spending as much on CapEx, this 123 dip is going to look pretty bad because I think we're going a lot lower than that. But I just don't think Zuckerberg in 5 days is going to change his mind from spending as much as he was spending just a couple of days ago when he said he's going to spend $65 billion. And if that happens, then we've got to reevaluate a lot of stuff. I really don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think he's going to say, well, yeah, we saw what DeepSeek did and we're spending less. If anything, he should be like, no, we got to spend more because now we know how much fast they're innovating. We got to get as much GPUs as possible to really make sure we maintain our edge, especially if they want to be the leading open source model. So, I guess we'll see. How that plays out. Doug says Amit wouldn't buy NVIDIA when it was going from 100 to 1,000 to 1,400, but now at 1,200 he's buying. Well, you got to remember, the reason I couldn't buy anything last year is because everything was in Hood and Palantir. So that August 5th dip when NVIDIA was at 100 or when it was going from 100 to 140, or I guess 100 to 1,200, 1,000 to 1,200 basically before the split. Dude, this is the first year I actually have cash. Because it's so funny. 2022, I had no cash because I put everything into Palantir and then it fell 50% or 80%. And then 2023, whatever cash I got, I just put it into Palantir and bought the dip and just hoped Palantir would recover. Thankfully, Palantir has done better. And then 2024, it was all Hood and Palantir. So this is the first year where I actually have money where I can diversify investments. Tesla right here getting hit as well, 1.4%. But who knows, dude? Who knows? Maybe 123 is a steal. Maybe it's not. I just think $600 billion in a day and then $4 billion going into the NASDAQ is the market calling BS on this entire NVIDIA decline. And we're going to have to see how it plays out from here. Amit, today is an excellent day to sell some out of the money covered calls on your NVIDIA. Why? Today's red. Why would today be the best day to wouldn't yesterday be a great day to sell out of the money covered calls on NVIDIA? I feel like when it gaps back up to 128, that's when we sell some calls. Unless you think it's a hedge against Meta and Microsoft. Dude, I don't know, bro. And that's why I bought the Nvidia dip just now. I really don't freaking think Meta or Microsoft are going to make CapEx guidance go so much lower that the street's going to re-rate Nvidia. I just don't think that's happening. I do not think that's happening. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that's happening. Powell speaks at 2:30. I'll be live at 2:20. Powell speaks at 2:30. We get the decision at 2 p.m. We get the decision at 2 p.m. AMD, how's AMD doing? Nvidia still right below 124, AMD 116. AMD is up about 3% here on the day. SMCI not really getting a bid with Nvidia either. SMCI 2810, that's down 0.3%. Rocket Lab doing nicely, up 2%. Grab as well, up 2%. Grab, I think Grab the dollar's not down today, so I don't know what Grab's benefiting off of. Maybe it's just buyers coming in. But yeah, dollar's actually up today. So not sure what's driving Grab, but it is green right now. What else? Reid Hoffman was on CNBC today. Let me see. Well, Reid Hoffman's interesting on his take. I don't know. Does he like DeepSeek or not? Because he's a little bit more of a fan of China than not a fan of China. I guess we'll hear his take. Let's listen to Starbucks first. They crushed it on earnings. Let's get the Starbucks CEO and let's see what he had to say as well. Also, we have some takes from Ray Dalio. He was on the All In podcast, so we'll get his take on AI and where we are in this state of the cycle.
Sometimes it's pure joy to do this job. Starbucks.
Yeah, look, I am really proud of the progress that we made. And, you mentioned some of the challenges we're facing, but I think I've outlined, hey, here are the 4 key things we're going to do to get this business turned around, right? First, reintroduce the Starbucks brand to the world. Second, we got to make sure our partners are supported the way they need to be supported. It all starts and ends with them. I think this testament of 90% promote within has really resonated with our teams. And then also the idea of making sure that we simplify the process, bring order to mobile order. The third thing we said we were going to do is obviously bring back the idea of a coffee house vibe. Hopefully you saw that with the condiment bar coming back. When you stay in our stores now, you're getting a ceramic mug, some free refills. And then obviously the other thing too is we got to win the morning. And you're starting to see us do that. And that's what I was really excited to see is we're starting to see progress as it relates to our partners being in position, being supported correctly, eliminating some of the noise so that we can get after the great craft, the great quality, and really have people experience, the premium experience of Starbucks. And
okay, Starbucks CEO, he knows how to talk his book. Let's switch to RFK real quick. Let's see what he's talking about, and then we'll get back to some other macro stuff. Let's share this right here. I think he's taking questions now.
You made almost $5 million from book deals, mostly promoting junk science. In 2021, in a book called The Measles Book, you wrote that parents had been, quote, misled into believing that measles is a deadly disease and that measles vaccines are necessary, safe, and effective. The reality is measles are in fact deadly and highly contagious, something that you should have learned after your lies contributed to the deaths of 83 people, most of them children, in a measles outbreak in Samoa. So my question here is, Mr. Kennedy, is measles deadly, yes or no?
The death rate from measles historically in this country in 1963, the year before the introduction of the vaccine, was 1 in 10,000. Let me explain what happened in Samoa. In Samoa in 2017 or 2015, there were 2 kids who died following the MMR vaccine. And the vaccination rates in Samoa dropped precipitously from about 63% to the mid-30s. So they've never been very high. And in 2018, 2 more kids died following the MMR vaccine, and the government of Samoa banned the MMR vaccine. I arrived a year later when vaccination rates were already below any previous level. I went there, nothing to do with vaccines. I went there to introduce a medical informatics system that would digitalize records in Samoa and make health delivery much more efficient. I never gave any public statement about vaccines. You cannot find a single Samoan who will say, I didn't get a vaccine because of Bobby Kennedy. I went in June of 2019. The measles outbreak started in August. Oh, clearly I had nothing to do with the measles. Not only that,
Mr. Kennedy,
Senator, not only that, if you let me finish,
you have had some time.
if you let me finish, Senator, if you let.
Okay, this is going to be this is going to be again 6 hours for those that are in Congress. That's going to be something to listen to. I don't even think it's worth for us listening to it because it gets into so much stuff about vaccines and what he thinks about it and all that stuff. I mean, and everyone questioning him just wants to make him look bad, so they're going to be asking gotcha questions, all this stuff, and he's going to be trying to give in context. You only have 5 minutes to ask a question. He can't give context in even 30 seconds. It's going to be a mess. Granted, I do think he's going to get confirmed. I think he'll get confirmed. I think it'll be a same JD Vance is going to have to be the deciding vote, 51-50. But yeah, it's going to be a rough 6 hours for everyone that's listening right there. All right, let's get to Reid Hoffman. Let's get his take on AI. Let's see what he's thinking about DeepSeek and all that good stuff.
DeepSeek scrambling part of the narrative around American AI supremacy, shaking the stock market earlier this week. In his new book, our next guest is asking, quote, what could possibly go right with our AI future? Joining us right now is Reid Hoffman, partner at Greatly Investor, called Super Agency. Talk about the book, but let's just, the market in your mind for software, AI, for the chips, for the energy space, or is this overblown? What's happening here?
Well, it's definitely overblown. I do think
it's overblown. You
yes,
think?
Yes. The level of reaction is overblown. There's a bunch of different things. So one, for example, I think that I actually always knew that we were going to get to a bunch of smaller trained models that have higher efficiency and targeting in certain ways. And part of the way you do that is by training them from larger models.
Right.
Like part of what's obviously quickly emerging is, well, part of how this got trained this way is by some kind of access to a larger model.
Right.
Great. And by the way, that's part of the reason why the larger models are useful. And part of what we'll see this year, next year, is the use of the large models from the hyperscalers will be to train a bunch of different small models and compose them in different ways. That's not news, or at least not news to most of us technology insiders. But I do think that the thing that is news is, well, look, as we've been saying, China is in the game. This is actually, in fact, a game-on competition, and it was resoundingly demonstrated that way. And there is good, useful work that comes out of it.
Does it change the dynamic, though? I mean, we've looked at, obviously, the Nvidia stock piece of this, for example, chips, energy. If all of this can be done in a much more efficient way, it seemed to me, tell me if I'm wrong, that for the most part, everybody, at least in the U.S., was in we're going, go big or go home. We're just going to try to keep advancing these platforms without necessarily spending all the time on the efficiency piece. These guys seem to focus as much on the efficiency piece as anything else. And does that change the dynamic?
Well, say, for example, you can train a model on 1,000 GPUs, but you can make it much better on 10,000 GPUs. You will, in a lot of cases, always spend for the 10,000 GPUs or the 100,000 GPUs, because if your coding model is even 20% better with that, and you think that there is billions of people who could be using and engaging that around the world, that's actually worth it in that kind of cost. So the fact that you're trying to do efficiency, that's a good thing. All of the American companies will also get to points where they're focusing on efficiency. I think there's things that we can learn from some of the stuff the Chinese are doing, but that doesn't mean you don't want the large models.
What do you make of the open versus closed source issue? And the reason I raise it is, you look at an Apple, all of a sudden people say, guess what? Apple hasn't not spent nearly the kind of CapEx that others have, and they're going to ultimately have access to something just as good. You could argue they do with OpenAI today inside the phone, but it's a different story. In Amazon, there are people are looking, saying they're the winners of this because they're not investing the same amount, but they're going to be able to have the same outcome.
Well, so the real question comes down to, how do you integrate these technologies into your business and franchise? And open source will be useful for a number of things, but just as startups tend to start with a bunch of open source and then add to them as they get bigger for things, usually open source doesn't help you solo by the open source power your much larger franchise and business. And what's more, as I think these, whether it's, OpenAI, Anthropic, Microsoft, Google, as they get to the large models and training the small models, that will create in fact, a much more higher performance system that I think most of the open source will get to.
Well, the market's not buying it yet, folks. Nvidia looking like it's going for new lows of the day. 123.02. 6 cents away from the 122s. 6 cents away from the 122s. There you go. 122.99. Yeah, market's not buying it yet. I guess we have some massive hiccups in regards to how the Nvidia thesis is playing out in terms of the market's perception of it. Also, this, again, I keep saying it, but this CapEx reaffirmation of spend, I guess the market's also saying, hey, once Meta and Microsoft tell us they're actually spending, even though they already told us we're spending, but we need to hear it again, post DeepSeek, then maybe we can go back to buying Nvidia. But 123.05, that's down right here, giving back basically 4% of what it got yesterday. It was up 8% yesterday. Now it's down 4%. So netting about 4% of the past 2 days. Rocket Lab up 1.7. Grab doing well, up 2%. Hoodie 49.35. Snapchat nice 1% pop. Palantir down 2%. Shopify a little bit of a breather from yesterday. Snowflake down 2.24. United's up 1.5, and then T-Mobile again. Great earnings on T-Mobile. 241, up 9%, dude. It's got to be one of its best days in a couple of years for T-Mobile. That's great. That is great. Jason said it would retest. Yeah, that's true. Jason did say it would retest. And 123 is kind of that $3 trillion psychological level as well, that it is retesting right here. Now below 123, 122.8. But he did say we would probably get a retest of that. It would be harder to imagine this thing breaking 130, even though overnight it was there. But it makes a lot more sense based on how he explained it last night as well. My dad just messaged me telling me, did you hear about DeepSeek? Means the normies and dumb money bought the narrative. Well, I think in general, it's catching headlines. That's the thing, right? Like, and like even my dad asked me about it. Or he asked me about what's happening with Nvidia. Then I had to explain DeepSeek. And dude, my dad last night says, what is AI? Like, he just straight up is like, but what is AI? And it was just it was kind of hard to explain it. I was just like, well, it's like, he was just like, what is it? Like, why do we care about AI? What is it? He's like, I know it's artificial intelligence, but what does that mean? And I'm like, well, I don't know. It's like, damn, how am I an AI investor? I don't know how to explain it. But no, I was just like, well, there's this, like, I didn't say large language model. I was like, well, there's this app called ChatGPT, and it takes all the world's information. He's like, oh, it gives you all the answers. I was like, yeah. So he's like, so Google's screwed. I was like, no, not really, even though it's so funny that he thought that, because that was all of our gut assumptions back when Google was $90, early 2023. Everyone was like, well, Google's screwed, right? ChatGPT is going to eat its lunch. So it's funny because like that's literally what he was like, oh, Google's screwed. Why would I use Google if everything, I have the answers already? But then I was like, no, Google's going to benefit from AI. It's like going to be part of their business. He still doesn't get it, but it is kind of hard to explain, not going to lie. Especially because you have to explain so many other things before you get to the value of AI. Like you have to explain, what is a large language model? What's the point of a large language model? NVIDIA looks like it's about to go below 122. How do you why should companies care about building large language? Like there's just so many derivative theses you have to talk about to get to the point of AI. But nonetheless, a lot of people are waking up to it. A lot of people are waking up to it. AI is what you are, but artificial with more capability. Yeah, I think that's a good one-liner. And I think, see, this is why I'm rooting for Apple to solve this thing. Because if Apple can get like AI on your phone, someone like my dad could better understand his agent, responding to his text messages or scheduling his meetings or yada, yada. But like, Apple's not there yet. Where's Nvidia? 122.21, down 5.25%. 122.21. Are we at 1030? We're at 1045. A little bit of a dump right here. It's slightly less useless than me. Dude, the Apple AI is so bad. It's so bad. Ask OpenAI what AI is. That's a good thing. That's a good experiment. If I had to explain what AI is to my 60-year-old dad in 4 sentences, what would I say? Let's see what it comes up with. Let's see if this makes any sense. AI is a type of technology that allows computers to learn from data and make decisions similar to how humans think. It powers things like voice assistants, self-driving cars, and even the recommendations you see on Netflix or Amazon. Instead of following strict rules like old school computers, AI improves over time by recognizing patterns and making predictions. It's not magic, just advanced math and computing that helps automate tasks, solve problems, and make life more convenient. I guess it's the same problem people had back in 2000 when they had to explain what the internet was, right? Like, what's the internet? I guess it was hard to explain. Well, all the information is on the World Wide Web and anyone can access the information at any moment. It's it's kind of vague. I didn't think of FSD though. I should have said FSD to my dad because he's experienced FSD before, and that is AI. So I think the easy explanation could have been the drive we took a week ago was because Tesla took a lot of data. They trained AI. I don't want to say models because he's going to get confused by what does he mean by models, but they trained an AI on all that data, aka the models, and that allowed us to have a car that drives itself, which is artificially intelligent. I guess that's like a decent real world example around that. Alibaba's AI did dethrone DeepSeek. That headline came out last night. Not bullish for Nvidia, or not bearish for Nvidia, in my opinion, but it does make people step up the challenges when it comes to the United States versus China. And, you know, who's going to win when it comes to AI. Dude, I was not expecting Baba to come out with a model. It's like they've been working on models for the past year and they've just been waiting to release it. And ironically, they released it the day after another Chinese company releases it. It really makes you think that some of these hedge funds know this was going to be the tidal wave of news coverage that was going to come out over the week. Yeah, that information did come out late last night. Okay, T-Mobile CEO. Let's listen to him and see what he has to say. I think he said Q4 was one of their best results ever for them as a company.
Continue in 2025.
Yeah, you know, David, first of all, we just issued the highest beginning of year guidance ever in our history. It's kind of interesting because we've had a storied growth history in this company, and people, you know, they ask me once in a while, like, is this, you know, is the biggest growth year? Are they in your past? 24 was the biggest growth year ever in our history, and that's just because 25 hasn't happened yet. And you know, here's the reason for it.
Hold on, that's an epic statement. 24 was the biggest year in our history for growth, and that's only because 2025 hasn't happened yet. I like this guy. That's a hell of a statement.
The consumer for our business is firing on all cylinders, but business is starting to come up and contribute way more as well. And so you don't have a soft spot looking across top 100 consumer markets, smaller markets in rural areas, and then now across multiple segments in business, and they're all contributing. So we went ahead and guided our highest postpaid net additions for the start of the year ever, and we moved our service revenue expectations up from prior expectations.
Right. You know, in the past, it has often been your benefit was the loss for some of your competitors, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Is it simply more reflective of a stronger economy, or particularly, as you just said, the enterprise, in fact, just kind of adding demand?
Yes, it's some of both. You know, we are growing in the business sector. The business sector itself is growing, so that's good, but there's definitely share taking happening there. And then the share taking is ongoing in the consumer space. It's not accelerating. We just keep taking share every quarter after quarter for years, but at a pretty predictable pace. And so it's just a great model. And the bottom line is people want a better 5G network and they want a great deal. And we have structural advantages that allow us to just continue offering both of those things.
Now, Mike, great to see you as always. Last time I spoke with you in San Francisco personally, you said to me, you know what, Apple's doing well. And everyone else was saying Apple's doing badly. That was about 100 points ago. On page 8 of your deck, you say a higher average revenue per device sold, that net of promotions, primarily driven by an increase in the high-end phone mix. Is it once again better than people think at Apple, or is it as downbeat as all the street?
This is like an SAT test on page 8 of my deck. I love it.
Well,
listen, I signaled to you that we were experiencing, you know, strong sales of the iPhone, and then you saw that in our numbers today. Right. So it's just totally consistent. People are buying premium phones from us. You saw our upgrade rates smooth out for the first time in a long time. Our upgrade rates tend to be lower than our peers. That's good for our financials, but they smoothed out. We saw it sort of pick back up this quarter. I think overall it's a very healthy trend.
Okay, there's an outfit called New Street Research. Candidly, I'm not that familiar with them, but they did propose a couple of scenarios today. T-Mobile, Charter, hard on interest, thinking that you will buy that. There's talk about you merging with Comcast. Talk about things that you can't talk about whatsoever, and yet there I am.
Oh, we're here to break news today, aren't we, Jim?
Go ahead.
Listen, we laid out at our Capital Markets Day an ambition for fiber. And, one of the things that has always made our business great is that it's a simple business. We try to make it simple. Fiber is a simple business as well, so it's a natural place for us to be, pure play fiber. We're never going to rule out anything here. We're here to create value. But we showed a little bit of our hand in terms of at least where our bias is towards fiber.
Well, and you're going to...
I like this guy, dude. I've never heard this guy before. I like him. He's, I don't know. I like CEOs that can talk, that can communicate, that are able to clearly identify what they're saying, especially some that can drop some nice moments when he says 2024 was only so good because 2025 hasn't happened yet. I like that. But I don't know anything about T-Mobile. Maybe it's a company worth looking into a lot more. People talk about Verizon and AT&T a lot because I think they've been around for longer, but T-Mobile is showing some growth that Verizon and AT&T have not shown in a while. CARP's going to be on CNBC tomorrow, folks. So we got the update right here, 11 a.m. I will be live. We will have Outs Carp right before earnings. So for everyone who's been complaining that Palantir's been a little too silent, I guess we're getting Carp. He doesn't usually do this right before earnings. So this is literally 4 days before earnings. The tone of his excitement, I imagine, we will see. And we'll all try to pontificate on if that means that earnings are going to crush. But yeah, right before, right? He usually doesn't do it right before. It's usually like 2 weeks before. This is literally 4 days? No, 3 days. Basically, I mean, if you take away the weekend, it's like 2 days. So that'll be an important one. And we'll hear what he has to say. All right, what else do we have? Is Nvidia still struggling? Dude, we're not even halfway through the day. We have so much coming up later today. Nvidia got back to 123. Hopefully it touched 121.7. Wow. So we did get below 122. Robinhood just went green. Grab, nice show today, up 3% on Grab, 467. SMCI is red, and then Nvidia still down 5% on the day. Who bought anything today? Did you guys buy anything? Who bought anything? I bought some Nvidia. Is there anything else we should be buying today? Google's down a little bit. Snapchat's doing good. Snapchat's holding up. We don't have to do anything there. Grab is doing its thing. Hood is kind of flat. And then Tesla as well. Tesla, dude, I have no clue about Tesla. I want to buy Tesla before earnings, but then I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's Tesla. They always get hit on earnings. But then again, if everyone's thinking they're going to dump, are they really going to dump? I don't know. I kind of think there's other catalysts that are just going to be talked about and the street's going to get excited. I don't know. Dude, Tesla, Meta, Microsoft, no clue. Absolutely zero clue what's going to happen today. Like it's hard to even pick what direction I think they would go. Enphase, Nvidia. We got some NVDLs here in the chat. Sold some puts on GitLab and Datadog. Boeing, Mickey bought. Chad bought some NVDL. Brandon bought Hood, SoFi, Grab. I love it. We got Rolf buying some Tesla. Guidance will sink Tesla 100%. Well, if Elon continues the guide for freaking 20% deliveries, I think that's bullish because they grew nothing last year. But if he takes that guide back down, then yes, I think that could hurt him. And that wasn't an official guidance, but on the earnings call, Elon said we will grow 20 to 30% deliveries in 2025. I only think the way they get there is by launching the $30,000 car. But then again, what if everything goes exactly how you'd expect it to go? They launch the $30,000 car in a couple months. They guide for 30% vehicle delivery growth. Maybe that means revenues grow by like 15%. That would be a great showing for Tesla. And that's not even factoring any of the progress on FSD. But then again, is that asking for too much? I don't know. Might be asking for a little bit too much from Tesla today. Jackie bought some Rocket Lab. Felix brought some Oklo. Zoko says, I'm working all this overtime to buy stonks. Dude, all of us literally, we take our money and we try to put as much of it as we can into the freaking markets. It's just wild. Like, most of your friends and family don't do that. They're like, they hold on to their money. It's in a savings account and it just stays there. And us, we're like, how quick can we get this into Nvidia or into our brokerage account? Which is why when stocks fall, it's so depressing, right? Because it's like you work your ass off to have the money to even invest, and then your investments go against you. And it's like, it just hurts, right? But it is the cost that it takes to even be in the game in the first place. Dude, if J-Powell cuts rates today, could you imagine? J-Powell's not cutting rates, but if he cuts rates today, there's no way it's happening. The probabilities have to be like 99% now that he's not cutting. If he gives us a surprise cut, yeah, it's 99.5%. I'm just excited for J-Powell trying to figure out how to dodge the Trump questions, because we know the number one question is going to be, Trump wants interest rates lower. When are you going to do it? And he's going to be like, well, we're data dependent. And they're like, yeah, but what if Trump thinks the data is ready for prime time for interest rates to come down? And J-Powell is just going to have to keep denying it and try to get away from that area or from that argument. If they keep asking, he might get mad, bro. He might legit get mad. He might. Last time he cursed. I mean, he might actually be like, guys, I don't care. Like, he's the president. I'm the chair of the Fed. We're in different situations. Stop trying to ask me to answer stuff I can't answer. I think that's how the press conference is going to go. That's it. Worst case, Powell says no more cuts this year. Maybe raise, watch, limit down S&P into the close. There's no way Powell's saying we're going to raise rates, dude. I mean, there is a chance. I think it's unlikely, especially with the new tense rent index coming down for the lowest level since 2010. I mean, that's the other thing. I'm curious what he's going to say about Trump, but I'm also curious what he's going to say about shelter inflation. Because if he can give us some dovish tone on shelter inflation. By the way, the other reason we should expect Powell to be dovish is because Goolsbee and what's his name? And Waller were super dovish on CNBC over the past couple of weeks. Like, to the point where they were arguing with the hosts about how dovish they should be, because the host wanted them to be more hawkish, because CNBC loves when the Feds get hawkish. And they weren't budging. They were being pretty damn dovish. So I don't think J-Powell would take that much of a U-turn from what his Fed presidents said publicly. And if he does, then it would just be weird, because it would be an incongruent message coming from the Fed. J-Powell's not going to cut, but will guide dovish. That's exactly what I think is going to happen. I think the press conference is going to be, he's not going to cut. He'll be dovish. He'll be a little annoyed at the Trump questions. And then after that, it's over. And then by the time you know it, we'll have 15 minutes left. And then Meta, Microsoft, and Tesla will report. That's how I think this is going to play out. Summit, thank you for becoming a channel member. Grant Knight, thank you for becoming a channel member. And Dunkel Shits, which is a great name. Thank you for becoming a channel member. Thank all three of you for being here and becoming a channel member. Rob, thank you for the $5 super chat. Admit, if SARS was not a thing, then what would be your prediction for Palantir on Monday? Again, dude, it comes down to growth. I really have no idea what they're going to guide for Q4. At this point, I want earnings to be over with so we can stop speculating, because like, it's just time to see what happens. But Carp doing CNBC 3 days before earnings, to me, is, I don't know, dude, it's kind of bullish. Feels kind of bullish. Maybe that's a naive take, but I don't know. Do you do live TV 2 days before you have results and then have shitty results? You know, I don't know, if they were gonna crap the bed, would he go live on TV right before and act super excited, knowing they're about to crap the bed? Like, they're not going to crap the bed. We know they're not. The stock might crap the bed because of the SARS thing, but honestly, I don't care about that. Like, I care about, can this company become what we think it can become, which is one day $1 trillion company, which means they got to get the growth to get there. And Monday is just going to be another step in that journey to try to get there. Jackie says damage control. Well, look, that could be, there's a bear case there as well, that he's going live before to soften the blow. Look, I'm not going to dismiss that. That happens all the time. So at this point, we just have to wait and see on how this is gonna play out. We'll find out soon enough, bro. We will find out soon enough, and we'll have to stop speculating once we get it on Monday. Boeing move. Well, Boeing. Yeah, but Boeing's different. Boeing's not in the same world as Palantir in terms of the momentum that it's had. So yeah, you're right. Boeing did report early, and then they were able to pump on earnings. Now they're down today, down 2.69%. So I guess it helped for a little bit, but not entirely. But also Boeing's a turnaround story. Everyone knows Boeing's going to crap the bed for like the next couple of years, but Street's just hoping they don't go out of business with some of these headlines they're getting. SMCI is at 28. Rocket Lab is still green, 29. Tesla 391. Nvidia trying to get back to 123, 122.79, down 4.8% on the day. Where's ASML? We haven't even looked at ASML today. They're up 4%. I forgot to look at ASML. The semis are all green except Nvidia, Broadcom, and ARM Holdings. Everything else is green. So ASML lifted up Qualcomm, TSM, Micron, Dell, Intel, and AMD. Why is Nvidia down 5%? Your guess is as good as mine. I honestly don't know. Other than yesterday being a technical bounce, therefore we're seeing a technical retracement, which is normal. But the headline narrative on DeepSeek destroying Nvidia is still obviously affecting investors today, as it's not necessarily recovering from where it was 2 days ago. But we're not at the 116s, which is good. And hopefully we don't get there. Oh, yeah, we had Vlad yesterday. Let's listen to a little bit of Vlad. Vlad was on Fox Business yesterday. Karp will be on CNBC tomorrow, 11 a.m. I'll be covering it. But Vlad was on yesterday with some takes around crypto and democratizing access to investors. So let's hear a little bit about what he said, and then we'll go from there.
United States should not get left behind. Vlad Tenev, the author of that op-ed, joins me now in a Fox Business exclusive. Vlad, how do you envision crypto as the vehicle for regular retail investors who have waited and wanted to buy shares in pre-IPO companies, but they haven't been able to?
Yeah, thank you for having me, by the way. Always great to be here. I think there's a big problem, which is that if you're a retail investor right now and you want to invest in AI, it is very, very clear that they do, judging by the market activity yesterday and the overnight on Sunday, you don't have too many options. OpenAI is a private company, over 150 billion valuation. It's only available to select few insiders. And it's not like it was in the 80s where companies could go public at small valuations. The IPO process has gotten cumbersome. Only the biggest companies can do it. And that limits opportunities and upside to retail investors. And so I think that we're in a bit of a strange place when highly speculative assets are free for retail to invest in, but high quality, productive technology startups that are generating significant revenue are off limits. And I think that we now have an administration that's crypto friendly and retail friendly, and we see an opportunity to fix this major problem.
I agree with you that the regular folks out there should be able to invest in private shares of privately held companies, but I have to play devil's advocate here. You talk about high risk. For every startup that succeeds, there are many that fail, and therefore the reason I would think the SEC says, you know what, you have to be accredited to invest in privately held companies is because accredited investors can take a hit if the company goes belly up. There's a lot more risk when you're investing in private companies that are startups.
Yeah, I think that these are all good points and it makes sense. But I think right now you have companies like SpaceX worth hundreds of billions, companies like OpenAI and Anthropic that are off limits to investors. And, you know, in the world of crypto, you see some criticism from skeptics that crypto is pretty much meme coin investing. And that's free for customers to invest in. That's open to them. So I think these two things cannot stand. And the right solution is to open up access to these sort of like previously accredited assets. And I think we can do that in a way that makes sure that customers know what they're putting their money into. and self-certify that they understand the risks.
You know, the sort of embrace of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency over the past couple of months has been so hard fought. The meme coin issue, doesn't that kind of cheapen what's going on and this hard fought war to have some legitimacy with the crypto world? Because, you know, you think about what happened when you attended some of the inauguration events before the actual President Trump inauguration, and you were at the crypto ball. And there have been a couple of articles written about how there was a jaw drop moment when it was announced at the crypto ball that Donald Trump and Melania Trump had launched meme coins. And there was a quote, at least in the Washington Post, where one of these guys said, his name is Nick something. I mean, he was listed. He wasn't embarrassed to say his name. He said, you know, it cheapens the embrace of the crypto industry because these meme coins don't have technical fundamental value behind them.
Yeah, I mean, here's what I would tell you. Right now in the US, it's basically illegal to connect crypto technology to real world assets. This is one of the things I argue in my op-ed. I think the reason that meme coins have become such a big part of the conversation is that listing companies and securities and connecting them to crypto technology in the US is not allowed. But what I tell you is the power where anyone can launch a coin and get access to a global market where there's lots of liquidity and raise capital for a technology project. The fact that it's so easy and that someone with a computer can set it up and do it in a relatively short amount of time shows you that the technology is valuable. And we just need the regulatory clarity to connect this crypto technology to real world productive assets that are currently regulated as securities.
You have a good track record on democratizing investing. Really quick, Vlad, the sell-off yesterday related to the DeepSeek China chatbot. What do you think? Have you looked into this? And do you think this is a reason for everybody to start selling US AI stocks?
I think when we look at our customers, the overnight session on Sunday was our second biggest overnight trading session. Our customers tend to buy the dip and generally tend to...
Wait, did he say it was the second largest overnight trading session ever? Hold on, let's see that again.
China chatbot, USA.
Overnight session on Sunday was our second biggest overnight trading session. Our customers...
Wow, bullish hood, baby. That's a lot of volume coming in just on that Nvidia dip.
Tend to buy the dip and generally tend to be very, very pro AI. I mean, they want to invest in AI. Nvidia has been the highest, if not, you know, the highest name in terms of net buying activity on our platform for quite some time. And I think that just shows you the power of what can happen if private markets are open. The unfortunate thing is technology is moving so fast, innovation is moving so fast that very few of the companies that are offering AI solutions and really innovating are public. Nvidia is among the few. Of course, you have Tesla and others, but OpenAI, Anthropic, not to mention, you know, DeepSeek, they are not. They're private companies whose investors are limited to a very, very small circle of insiders that tend to invest in all of these deals. So I think that the next frontier in democratization of retail investing is going to be making sure that these opportunities are open to retail investors.
I think what he's talking about here is more so about tokenization. So he's not really talking about you get to invest in Anduril before they go public. I think he's more so talking about how can we tokenize the next generation of asset classes. Honestly, Larry Fink has talked about this a lot in the past. This idea that if we could tokenize assets on the blockchain and someone could sell their $100 million property in Manhattan via a blockchain, and you know, hundreds of millions of people could own parts of that Manhattan real estate via a tokenized asset, because you can't literally own parts of it because you can't have shares of a real estate, you know, property, because then how does it go public, right? It doesn't make sense for a house to go public But if you own that house and you want to democratize access to people owning equity in that house, blockchain allows you to do that. Tokenization allows you to do that. And then you get the upside of owning that asset because you have all this demand coming in of people that want to bid against prices on what that's worth. I think that's what Vlad is talking about here. And I think some of the crypto infrastructure they're building in the future might be a way to get there. Now, granted, it's an ambitious idea, and I don't expect that to happen overnight. I don't expect, accreditation. I agree with him. The accreditation laws in America are stupid. The problem is a lot of startups fail. And I do think Fox Business had a good point right there, because it's like when startups fail, like the only way you can handle a $25,000, $50,000 loss in a startup is if you have enough money to be able to be like, okay, that's okay. That was my fun money. I lost it and I can move on. But if you're an average person that doesn't have the $25,000 to lose and you end up putting that into a startup and it fails, which most startups fail, that is why accreditation laws exist. Now, granted, the problem with accreditation laws is they're so old school and they're so outdated that even if we have those laws, they need to be updated for a more modern era. But I don't think Vlad is really talking about just accreditation. I think he's more so talking about crypto, which has no accreditation. AKA, you can make $1 million off a meme coin or $10 million off a meme coin in a day because you don't need to be a qualified investor to get access to it. I think he's saying, what if we take that same philosophy that people have been using with meme coins, where it's open access, no accreditation, but we bring that to actual asset classes that deserve to be on a blockchain and tokenized. So maybe not the Trump meme coin, but Manhattan property. I do think that would be pretty revolutionary if they could do that. It's going to take time for that to play out. But it is showing their ambitions for crypto are sky high, and they want to be a big player in this space. Grab right here is at 470, up 3.2%. So Grab having one of its best days it's had in a while. Damn, I can buy a hood house on margin. That'd be so cool. Yeah, theoretically, you'd be able to use some margin and buy a tokenized asset. Again, this is far away, but Vlad's been talking about this for a long time. Even 8 months ago, he did an interview on CNBC where he was talking about that same example of like tokenizing a piece of property and then allowing anyone to get access to it, and you don't have to go public in some REIT to be able to have a company that is a shell of the property. Like, it's just 100 Madison Avenue, boom, that's available to trade. And if you want to trade it, you can trade it. If you don't want to trade it, you don't have to trade it. But tokenization creates the infrastructure to do it. Maybe it plays out, maybe it doesn't, but at least they are having some more ambitions when it comes to blockchains. That's the NFT talk from 3 years ago. Yeah, I mean, look, they've got to be able to do it in a really interesting way. They've got to be able to do it in a way that's actually meaningful. Because I agree, the NFTs I think are kind of stupid, and the NFTs have always been stupid to me. Now, granted, if you are tokenizing assets, they're not just digital pictures of rocks. They're like equity in something that's real. So I could see a little bit of a difference there, but it would definitely have to be formatted in a unique way. All right, Nvidia down. Nvidia 122.9, a little recovery on Nvidia, still below 123. Palantir down 2%, Snapchat's up a little bit. Tesla, Microsoft, Amazon are red by about 2% each, or about 0.5% on Meta. Microsoft is red. Who owns Microsoft? Put in the chat. Does anyone own Microsoft? Put in the chat if you own Microsoft. And while you guys are doing that, let me see if I can call Steve. He said he would be free this morning. Let's see if he picks up. And we'll get his take on the markets. Wow, a lot of you guys own Microsoft. Wow, a decent amount of you own Microsoft. 5,000 shares of Microsoft. I own Microsoft. Yeah, Steve can't pick up. Okay, so a lot of you guys will be waiting to see what these results look like later today. Does OpenAI's valuation go to zero? No, I don't think it goes to zero. I do think the moat becomes in question. I don't think it goes to zero, though. But if Meta says they're building an even better open source model, I definitely think people are going to be questioning what's going on with OpenAI. The thing about OpenAI, though, is everyone's getting bearish about it. And because everyone's getting bearish, I think that might be another argument for why they will have some level of momentum. I mean, the biggest thing here is, can they get to AGI faster than everyone else? And if they can, I don't know how you can be super, super bearish if they come up with AGI. Now, granted, it's going to be a hell of a competition to get there. It's not going to be easy if everything's commoditized to be the first ones to achieve AGI. But if they do it, then definitely wouldn't be bearish. I still think, though, the models are not going to be where the market finds value in. I think Karp's going to be talking about that tomorrow on oh, yeah, well, that's probably another reason he's going live on CNBC, because now this whole DeepSeek thing is kicking off. He's probably going to get up there and just talk more and more and more about how these models are not the answer. Let's get an update on the Fed, see what some of the suits are thinking that the Fed's going to talk about, and then we'll keep going from there.
On the Fed, potential move in rates, how it may play out in the market. Our next guest is in charge of corporate credit at Goldman Sachs, advising America's biggest companies on their multi-billion-dollar financings. Johnny Fine is here, Goldman Sachs Global Head of Investment Grade.
Wait, his name is Johnny Fine? Hold on, bro. If my last name was Fine, I would have some fun with that. That's what? Johnny Fine. Dude, and Johnny, it sounds like a cartoon character. Johnny Fine. Sounds like Johnny Bravo, right? Wasn't that a cartoon character? Johnny Bravo? Johnny Fine.
Debt. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
What do you expect?
No change. I think that the...
And he's a Brit. Mr. Fine is a Brit. Dude, I feel like my British accent is better than my Indian accent. I feel like it's a little bit better. He's a Brit. We got a Brit. Mr. Johnny Fine is a Brit.
The outlook is simply too uncertain from a government policy perspective. I think if I'm Chair Powell today, then given the data has been fairly benign as of late, I'm in no hurry to do anything. And given the mosaic of potential policy outcomes that could drive inflation and growth over the next several weeks and months, if I'm a betting man, I'm going to say he's going to take a watching brief, see how this develops, and see what the impacts are.
Right. I mean, I highlighted tariffs as one of the big wild cards on inflation. Bond market is trading tariffs as inflationary.
Correct.
Is that right?
I don't think so. I think there's many other things in this mosaic that are going to be more important than tariffs. Tariffs tend to occupy a lot of column inches, a lot of chat in the market overall, a lot of airtime. But overall, I'm not so sure that we should be as focused on tariffs as a risk as perhaps the market is. And the reason for that is that, firstly, it's a one and done, as opposed to a continuous bleed through into...
Well, we don't know
prices.
exactly, right?
Likely it's a one and done. Either way, it's a step function as opposed to a excess demand driven level of inflation. Additionally, the impacts on the foreign exchange market generally mean that the dollar will strengthen as a function of tariffs being imposed, which itself is tightening from a financial conditions perspective. And ultimately, demand is reduced with higher prices anyway, which then questions how much of this tariff actually is passed on in terms of increased prices. So all of these things together, for me, I think the tariff fear is overblown. If I'm the market, I'd be more focused on the other elements of policy making, including impacts on the fiscal outlook and on the labor market as well.
Look, I agree with Mr. Johnny Fine. I think that the mosaic of how we conceptualize the Fed and the way that they think of tariffs. Damn, I'm so bad. This is so bad. I am so bad, dude. I can't even do a British accent or an Aussie accent. I am just like, I'm not meant for accents, bro. I just have my voice and that's it. Can't do Indian, can't do British, can't do Aussie. It ends up sounding American every time I try. It's so bad, bro. It's so bad. It was better than the Indian though, right? It was at least kind of better. It was so bad, dude. Oh my gosh. I liked how he said mosaic though. He's like the mosaic. See, but I can't say it like him, but he can say it. Dude, I love the British accent so much. Like I've always been in love with that accent. Like, I'm going to marry a Brit, bro. I'm going to marry a Brit. I'm going to marry a Brit just to hear that. She's going to teach me this accent. I love it, bro. There's something about that accent. For some Australian and British accents have always been interesting to me. Just how they sound are so cool. Like they sound like they're elite. There's like this elitism intrinsically inside. Like, have you ever heard Adele talk? Adele, which I don't know how she sings the way she sings, and she has that accent. It's pretty incredible how some of those people do that. But her accent's incredible. She just sounds like she's a queen when she talks, bro. There's this unique accent there. Just select the Brit filter on Grindr. Oh my gosh. Maybe one day I'll learn that accent. But anyway, what he's saying right there, the point of what he was saying is that we are too focused on tariffs and not really focused on the broader implications of when inflation is going to come down. And that because of that uncertainty on when inflation is going to come down, there's no way the Fed's going to be able to cut rates, which he's correct about. But it's not new news because we know the Fed's not going to be able to cut rates anytime soon. May is when we have a 50% chance. March, we have like a 20% chance. Today, we have a 99.5% chance we're not going to get a cut. So I think it's going to be a rather boring meeting outside of Jay Powell talking about shelter and dodging some questions from Trump. There's not going to be anything exciting that we'll see today. Dude, I need a British accent. I need it. Do Canadians have an accent? No, Canadians do have an accent. Canadians do have an accent. I heard Tanner the other day on his stream. He said eh. And I was like, oh, that sounds like that's what they say, right? I don't know why they say like eh at the end of every sentence, but that's like kind of a Canadian accent, I guess. Or at least that's not a catchphrase, but like a phrase that they use. Right? It's like eh, right? At the end of every word or something, at the end of every sentence. Tanner was like, look at that, eh? I was like, oh, that's Canadian. Right? Or French. I'm so bad at accents. I'm so bad, dude. So bad. All countries have an accent. I mean, yeah, I guess so. Does America? But America has an accent in certain regions. Like there's a Southern accent. There is a New York accent. That's for sure. There's definitely a Cali tech bro accent. But there's other countries that have cooler accents, like in the UK. Oh, Boston too. Yeah, we have Boston. We have Boston as well. Boston also has accents. All right, what else do we have? Do we have any other crazy headlines? RFK is still testifying. We can hop back into that for a second. We'll see if we get anything out of that. But let's see. Let's see. All right, I think he's still in Q&A. Let's see what he's saying.
But as you know, agriculture is our top economic driver in Montana. We produce some of the highest quality crops, the best livestock in the country and the world. Our farmers and our ranchers are truly some of the most effective environmental stewards in ensuring we have a safe food supply chain in the world. I share your view that protecting the integrity and safety of our food supply is of utmost importance. I appreciate the research happening in places like Montana State University to help farmers produce resilient, healthy, and safe crops, as well as their agricultural practices. You mentioned you were a 4-H kid growing up. I think our 4-H kids and our FFA kids are some of the best kids in America. My question for you, Mr. Kennedy, is if confirmed, as I'm listening to my farmers and ranchers talk about the future, will you commit to working collaboratively with partners at USDA, at the relevant federal agencies, as well as our Montana farmers and ranchers before implementing any policy that might affect or impact food supply?
Absolutely will make that commitment. I have, as I shared with you, a personal commitment and a long career working with farmers. I want to make sure I understand the very, very narrow margins, the slim margins that American farmers and ranchers are dealing with. And I don't want, under my watch, a single farmer to have to leave his farm for economic reasons or for regulatory or bureaucratic reasons while I serve, if I'm privileged to serve, to be confirmed as HHS Secretary. Even more important, President Trump has a very, very strong commitment to farmers. President Trump is probably historically in modern history the best farm president in our history. Farm income spiked for the first time in decades under his last administration. He got solid support from farmers across the country. Farm country is Trump country. Farmers across the country supported him during this election. He has specifically instructed me that he wants farmers involved in every policy and that he wants me to work with Brooke Rollins at USDA to make sure that we preserve American farmers, that all of our policies support them.
Mr. Kennedy, thank you. And if confirmed, I look forward to having you and Brooke Rollins out to Montana to spend some time with
You
our
have
farmers.
my commitment to come there anytime, particularly during ski season or hunting season.
Deal.
All right. Confirmation looks like it continues to keep going. Jared says, did you see the Intel former CEO bought the Nvidia dip? Really? Pat Gelsinger? He bought Nvidia? How do you see that? How do you know that? Oh, wow. Elon Musk nominated for Nobel Peace Prize for protection of free speech. Wow. Elon getting a Nobel Peace Prize. Huh. What a headline. What a headline if that happens. I'm trying to find the Pat Gelsinger Nvidia news if I can see that. Oh, he did. Yeah, he bought it. He posted on LinkedIn. He bought the dip. Intel CEO, is that bullish or bearish that the Intel CEO bought the dip? We'll read through his thoughts in a second, but he bought the dip. Elon Musk nominated for Nobel Peace Prize for protection of free speech. All right, so let's do a live vote right here in the chat. Let's see what you guys think. Does Elon deserve a Nobel Peace Prize for free speech? I guess they're assuming buying Twitter, right? That's what they mean by getting, like, that's what they mean by preserving or protecting free speech. I guess I would imagine buying Twitter is like the thing he did that got the committee to nominate him. Dude, Elon's never won a Nobel Prize on anything, to my understanding. Not like a Nobel Physics Prize or a Nobel Math Prize. So this is a big one. Nobel Peace Prize for protection of free speech. Wow, 50-50 in the chat, huh? Literally 50-50. 50% say no, 50% say yes. Am I saying Nobel wrong? I'm saying it is a Nobel, obviously, because I ring a cowbell. I have to. No, probably it's Nobel. So you guys are right. I'm saying it like bell, but still, I'm not trolling you guys, bro. I don't know how to say words. Like it is what it is. I don't know how to say words. This is so bad, bro. Okay, anyway, so that's what we got from Elon. 50-50 on the Peace Prize. I want to get more details on that. We'll see if Elon comments on that soon. I wonder if Elon's gonna accept that nomination or not. But then we also got Pat Gelsinger, who bought the dip. So here's what he wrote yesterday. Wait, you guys saying no, it is Nobel. You're saying it is Noble? So I wasn't saying it is Nobel. Oh, I see what you guys are saying. I'm saying it is Noble, but it is Nobel. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so it's Nobel. Even though I'm saying it's, see, I put the L and the E in the opposite direction. Of course. Why not? Why not? See, I'm allergic to saying no bell because I ring the bell every day. So I don't know what it means to have no bell. We're not going back to the days where we had no bell, bro. Those were not fun days. All right, here's what Gelsinger said. The response to DeepSeek has been fascinating to watch, and I would suggest the response misses 3 important lessons we have learned in the last 5 decades of computing. First, computing obeys the gas law. This means it fills the available space as defined by available resources. As we saw in the PC, virtualization, mobile, and numerous others, making compute resources broadly available and at radically lower price points will drive an explosive expansion, not contraction of the market. Basically, Javon's paradox right there. AI will be in everything going forward, and today it is orders of magnitude too expensive to realize that potential. I recall my first internet browser experience, wow, and now it's every minute or second of every day if you're a teenager. The market reaction is wrong. Lowering the cost of AI will expand the market. Today, I'm an Nvidia and AI stock buyer and happy to benefit from lower prices. Wow. So Gelsinger is thinking that this dip is stupid. Second, engineering is about constraints. It is clear that the DeepSeek team had numerous constraints and found creative ways to deliver a world-class solution in every respect at 10 to 50x lower costs. Export laws limited the available resources, so Chinese engineers needed to get creative, and they did. They didn't need $10 billion of hardware on the latest chips and multi-billion dollars of a training budget. One time years ago, I was interviewing the famed, maybe the greatest computer scientist of our time, Donald Knuth. He described in detail how he did his best work when the resources were most severely limited and schedules most demanding. I consider that insight one of the most important of my engineering and management career. Third, open wins. It has been disappointing to watch the foundational model research become more and more closed over the last few years. In this, I'm more aligned with Elon than Sam Altman. We really want, nay, need AI research to increase its openness. We need to know what the training data sets are, study the algorithms, and introspect on correctness, ethics, and implications. Fighting the battles of legal, spectrum engineering, and adoption. Open is never easy and consistently challenged by the market forces. Open wins every time it is given a proper shot. AI is much too important for our future to allow a closed ecosystem to ever emerge as the one and only in this space. This is pretty incredible, dude. He is pretty damn bullish on this. DeepSeek is an incredible piece of engineering that will usher in the greatest adoption of AI. It will help reset the industry in its view of open innovation. It took a highly constrained team from China to remind us all of these fundamental lessons of computing history. That's not a reason to be scared of Nvidia. I mean, look, Pat Gelsinger, whether you want to say he was a good Intel CEO or not Intel CEO, the guy's a smart guy. I mean, the guy has been at the forefront of computing for a very long time, even if Intel was not able to catch up when it comes to innovation. And I think it makes sense. He's basically quoting Javon's paradox and kind of laying it out in plain terms that we are going to have more compute, even if we have more innovation when it comes to training on that compute. But that's not going to lower demand. But the market doesn't believe it. The market does not believe it yet. 5347 on the Nobel Peace Prize vote in the chat. Who were the last Nobel Peace Prize winners? Let's take a look at that. Tell me the last 20 years of Nobel Peace Prize winners. Tesla's below 389. Okay, Tesla's getting hit. Dude, I can't talk. I don't know what to tell you guys. There's certain words I can't say. It is what it is. I can't do anything about it. But Nobel, which I'm probably going to say wrong later. You know, my accent is mispronunciation. That's the Amit accent. It's not British or Canadian or Indian. It's just mispronunciation. Okay, so Nobel Peace Prize laureates from 2005 to 2004. Barack Obama was the last guy from the United States to win it in 2009. Is this correct? Someone from the United States hasn't won it since 2009. Is Obama the last guy to win it from the United States? I don't know any of these other people, to be honest. I don't really cover the Peace Prize as deeply. I remember when I was in 6th grade when Obama won it, so I do remember that. I remember that was big news when Obama won it. Wow, it's been a while. Oh, Trump was nominated, right? Trump was nominated for it. Was Trump nominated for this? Yes, Trump was nominated by multiple times for the Nobel Peace Prize. In 2020, he was nominated by Norwegian parliamentarian for his role in brokering the Abraham Accords. In 2024, in January, he was nominated again. And then in November 2024, he got nominated again. That was recently on trying to stop Russia's aggression against Ukraine. However, he has not been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. So Trump got nominated 3 times. Yeah, Elon is South African, so technically it would be given to a South African. I don't know how the Nobel Peace Prize Committee would label it, but might not be literally to a United States citizen. Do we think Elon's going to win it? Do we think they'll let Elon win it? I don't know, bro. Not that many people love Elon. That would be a hell of a middle finger to the mainstream media, because that's a prize that everyone pays attention to. They cover. If Elon wins that, dude, most of the mainstream media thinks that Elon is like inciting hate speech on Twitter and he's anti-trans, anti-everything. Like, for him to win the Peace Prize would be, I mean, that's an MSNBC segment I would want to see that day. I would want to see how they cover that. Because then you would have to, if they want to cover him badly on winning the Peace Prize, they would have to either undermine the integrity of the committee that comes up with that prize, or they would have to acknowledge that Elon has created more peace by protecting free speech. I guess we're going to find out how that plays out. Okay, where is Nvidia? Where is Nvidia? Are we still stuck below 123? Yeah, 122.8. At least it's not dipping below 122 so far. It's been holding on okay. Grab up 3%. Tesla's up down 2%. Tesla definitely getting a little bit of a dip right here going into earnings. SMCI finally going green. It's been red for the past 3 days. Palantir as well, still down 2%. And then Shopify down 1%. DJT still up 8% right now. Going back to what the Intel CEO said, dude, I think that's why you buy the Nvidia dip. Like if you've been waiting for Nvidia, what he said right there is the idea that we're gonna have more compute. I think Jensen's gonna harp on this whole Javon's paradox thing as well and say the world is going to more and more compute. Now, if Jensen lowers demand expectations for 2025, that would not be the best, and that would reaffirm the market's suspicions on Nvidia potentially being too cyclical. But I don't know. Like for him to do that, Meta would have to lower their expectations. Microsoft, like everyone would have to say DeepSeek changed the trajectory of CapEx demand, and that would be the only thing that gets Jensen to reduce his outlook. Which I guess we'll find out in the next coming weeks if that ends up happening. Let's get an update from Trump's new buyout for federal employees and get some updates on that.
We continue to get a stream of headlines out of Washington, D.C. overnight, including some of the confusion as well around that federal funding freeze. Eamon Jabbers keeping track of it all. What do we got, Eamon?
Good morning, David. The White House says they expect 5 to 10% of the federal workforce to accept their offer for what they're calling a deferred resignation. They say that could save the taxpayers as much as $100 billion annually over the long term. The deal on the table is if you resign by next week as a federal employee, you can collect full pay and benefits and retain your pension until September 30th, even though you will do no work. The new Department of Government Efficiency posted this morning that employees, quote, can take the vacation you always wanted or just watch movies and chill while receiving your full government pay and benefits. That comes as the White House is beginning to fill in the details of an abrupt federal payment freeze that went into effect yesterday. Officials here now say this is not a blanket stop work order. Instead, it's an effort to identify and eliminate programs that are not politically correct in the MAGA era, such as diversity efforts or efforts around transgender issues. Now, all of that coming as Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says the deadline of this Saturday still holds for potential new tariffs on China, Canada, and Mexico. So we'll be watching for the details today on how that might roll out, David. And just one other detail here, that those Medicaid portals, payment portals that shut down yesterday, the White House said they were aware of that and that those portals were now going to be up and running. So they seem to have gotten some of the kinks out of that federal funding freeze overnight, guys. Back over to you.
Either you show up to work or you get bought out. I mean, whether you like some of these policies or not, Trump is definitely trying to implement different parts of his agenda. And now we're going to see if those can go through. I don't think the courts are going to challenge this. The courts are already challenging the ending the birthright citizenship. They're challenging some other executive orders as well, but I don't know if they're going to be able to challenge this one because this is, you know, Elon compared it yesterday to that email he sent to Tesla employees in 2020 or 2018. It was the fork in the road email. A lot of the OG Tesla investors know what I'm talking about. And the wording of the email they sent out last night to federal employees was very similar to the wording. It almost was like Elon wrote the email, basically saying, hey, we're either going to go bankrupt or you guys have to be exceptional. And if not, you're going to get fired. That was kind of the tone of the email they sent out to federal workers yesterday. So look, whether it works or not, it is an attempt at efficiency. It is an attempt of trying to see if they can get it to be a bit better. I don't know. I like my thing is like whether this works or not, they're trying. They are trying. And we have $36 trillion in debt. We either cut some of the spending or we outgrow. We've got to be able to get the growth, but growth is going to be hopefully 3% of GDP. I mean, we're not India. We're not growing at 7 or 8% GDP. So, or we're not even China that grew at 5%. So if we have 3% GDP growth, we got to cut some costs to be able to balance the budget. And I guess you have to have some measures that hopefully can go into place. He did the same to ex-employees as well. Yeah, he did the same to ex-employees. That's correct. He did that as well. Linky Link, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate you watching the show. And thank you for becoming a channel member here today. Who does the birthright thing affect? So I believe it affects people, like if you illegally came to the country and then you had a child. My understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, that child is a natural born American citizen, even if their parents illegally came here. Even if their parents aren't citizens, those kids are citizens. That's what I think Trump is trying to stop, because then that gives him a easier way to deport people that were born here naturally, even if they didn't come here naturally, or their parents didn't come here naturally. But then again, the courts are saying, wait a second, that could set a really bad precedent if we take it to its logical extreme. And so right now, that is not the law of the land yet. That is being challenged pretty heavily in a lot of district courts in the United States. I think even there's a district court in New Jersey that's attacked. I think there's a district court in Texas as well that's appealing that. So we're gonna have to see in the next few weeks if that gets through. I could see that going to the Supreme Court. I could see that going to the Supreme Court. That's a heavy one. Atlanta Fed lowers its final Q4 US GDP estimate drastically down from 3.2 to 2.3. Really? I was just talking about GDP growth at 3%. Oh boy, let me just confirm that headline. That is a hell of a headline if the Atlanta Fed went that route. Yeah, wow. 2.3 versus 3.2. Huh. 2.3 versus 3.2. They did a quick little reversal. Okay, so they're estimating Q4 growth to be lower. Well, this is why big tech's really got to crush earnings, because if we're going to have less than 2.5% growth, which granted is not the worst thing in the world, it was just really nice to be above 3%. I think we grew at 2.6 to 2.9% over the past couple of quarters. So it's not like 2.3 is horrible, especially if we beat that and come in at 2.5. But 3 was really exciting. Does that mean a rate cut is coming? Well, see, this gets into the macro conundrum that is stagflation, right? If growth slows down, but inflation doesn't, the Fed's not going to cut rates because inflation's not coming down. Like if growth slows down and inflation comes down, then you can cut rates, even if the economy gets into a recession. And then the cutting of the rates hopefully helps us get out of the recession. But if growth slows down and inflation doesn't slow down, you can't cut rates because then inflation's going to spiral and then you're screwed. And so I think Jay Powell's biggest fear for the past couple of years has been trying to make sure that we don't get into that situation. He even said that famous quote, right? I don't see the stag or the inflation. But I think that's something that, the Fed's going to care about a lot. But then again, 2.3% is not horrible growth. Now it's lower from the expectations at 3.2. I don't know if the market's reacting that deeply to that. S&P is, relatively unchanged. Market's not really being affected on that. And again, it's the Atlanta Fed. That's their projections. That's not the actual numbers. But we've been doing 2.5 for the past couple quarters. So it'd be nice to have that. Let me confirm. What was GDP growth last quarter in the US? I think it was like above 2.5. No, it was 3. It was exactly 3. Yeah, 3%. 3%. Actually, no. Okay, so it was 3% in the second quarter, 2.8% in the third quarter. So 3% in Q2, 2.8% in Q3, and hopefully it's not below 2.5 going into Q4. Amit, what would you consider a full position on Grab? It really depends on your portfolio, right? Really depends on your position sizing. My position is up there now. It's like with a little bit of the run we had today, it's like 80K. So I'm in this thing heavy. And I don't know. I believe in it. I think $10 in 2 years is not crazy. And so I'm heavily in this one. And again, like some people might say, well, why would you go so heavy into this versus like Google or Amazon or whatever? Google and Amazon are very safe bets. I expect those to do well. I don't expect those to give me a dramatic return. And so this is one of those things that could take the portfolio to the next level if I'm right in 2 years. And again, dude, I don't want to go through the whole thesis again, but I think this is kind of obvious. I think net income is going to be sustainable 2025. Free cash flow just went positive. Adjusted EBITDA went positive. They're buying back their shares, yada, yada. They're expanding. I mean, this to me is a 2021 company that the market didn't care about for 3 years because of COVID that is now breaking out. So yeah, it's a big position for me. I'm in options on this thing that could potentially 6 to 7x if this thing does well. So that could set up the portfolio well going into 2027. But I don't know. It is still speculative though. So it's like, it's not as safe as Amazon. So if you want to be less on the riskier side, you know, you wouldn't put as much as you put into this versus Amazon. It's just, for me, I have a lot of conviction, and obviously Amazon's safer, but I think I'm going to be right about this one. And who knows, maybe I'm wrong. But that's the fun of investing. That's the fun. Either you're right or you're wrong. Amit, does your uncle use Grab? Yes, he does. The big thing I get from the people that are in Singapore that I've talked to is that their only bear case is that there is competition for them. And that's why the incentives that Grab offers to get people onto the app cuts into their margins pretty heavily. I agree. That is a bear case. That is not a thesis breaker. And it is a bear case in terms of margins going down, or at least staying down for a couple quarters. It is not a, oh my goodness, this is not an obvious monopoly, because it's becoming, in my opinion, an obvious monopoly in Southeast Asia. And then I've done a lot of research on Southeast Asia, and I think it's one of the best sectors outside of India to invest in terms of real growth. Also, if we look at one of their competitors, SEC Limited, they're up 14% year to date. They've had a phenomenal year already. Grab, I think just the sentiment has been hit on this company, which is why it hasn't had the same type of momentum. But that's when you buy it, right? You don't buy the thing when it's up 300%. You buy it when it's down 80% from IPO, and you see that there's a chance that these guys begin to seriously recover. That's what I did on Palantir, what I did on Hood. A lot of you guys did that on Rocket Lab and SoFi. You know, that's one of the asymmetric bets we're looking for. Yeah, my uncle right here in the chat. I use it today and every day: food, travel, and digital bank. And that's the other thing I really like about them, dude. Their digital banking stuff, I think, is growing. Now, there's a lot of competition for fintechs in Southeast Asia, but their loan growth is 81%. Their deposit growth is 50%, not year over year, quarter over quarter. I mean, if those numbers, I mean, they opened up a bank in Indonesia in October, or in July. By October, they had 2 million accounts. Like, that type of growth, I think, is going to get them to be adjusted EBITDA positive on financial services, because right now the whole business is adjusted EBITDA positive, but not financial services. I think it'll take 2 quarters for them to get positive on that. Once that positive, you're going to guarantee net income stabilization for 2025. And that's basically what Evercore said on Grab as well. Let's just read that, and then we'll end the Grab discussion there. But I agree with him to a large extent, and a couple of my buddies that are in this one, pretty much, you know, our analysis lines up with him. So he says the chart shows that Grab has recently caught a bid. We believe this bid is somewhat belated, but we also view it as well warranted, and we see material upside from here, 50% upside to our price target. Over the last few quarters, Grab has hit several major profitability inflection points: 5 consecutive quarters of positive EBITDA, 3 consecutive quarters of free cash flow, and we believe sustainable net income begins in 2025. Further, user growth remains robust. Q3 ended with 42 million monthly active users, up 16% year over year. People tell me there's competition. I get it. But if Grab's growing users at that rate, at a total TAM of 700 million users in Southeast Asia, it seems to me like they have a monopoly, even if they have to spend some money to get people to use the product, which is not a bad thing at the end of the day. We also see a solid setup here for accelerating revenue growth and materially expanding EBITDA margins in 2025. That's also my thesis, is particularly rooted in their EBITDA margins. Driven by both the financial services and delivery segments, accelerating revenue growth and expanding margins usually drives share price outperformance. In our book, yes, it's time to grab some shares. So that is my thesis as well. There you go. The link to that, yeah, it's right here. The link to that, you can read it. I've been trying to get the report, bro. Me and my boy works at my boy Sebastian, he works at he works at a private equity bank in Los Angeles, and he has tons of these reports, and he's been hitting up all of his contacts and he can't find it. And I'm trying to find it too. And none of my contacts, I'm like, they're guarding this report from us, bro. I'm trying to get like the full valuation, but I've not been able to get it yet. Doug just sent me a clip of Ray Dalio speaking about Grab. Did he actually mention Grab? Let's see.
Countries and places and things. Most importantly is price. I think a lot of investors make the mistake of thinking, I want to buy good things. That's a great company. But a great company that gets expensive is much worse than a bad company that's really cheap.
Totally.
So you have to look at pricing. This is all part of the look at different countries and places and things.
Okay, so I don't think that was about Grab, but that was a broader argument about what Ray Dalio means when it comes to investing in companies for the long term. Yeah, look, I mean, there's an argument right there, right? And it depends on how you conceptualize the price of what you're getting into or the company you're getting into versus the risk. Like obviously Amazon and Nvidia, much less riskier than Grab. But again, then you look at my profile, 27 years old, like I'm way more risk on. I'd way more be 100K in Grab than 100K in Amazon. And that sounds crazy to some people, but if you really have your conviction, then if I lose 100K, it would suck, but I'll be okay, in life, I would hope. But if 100K turns into 700K, it's like, there's a different level of risk reward there. And then it just comes down to, do you know the company? Do you really think you know the company? And I can't tell you how much I've been researching this company. Here's another clip right here about their CFO. Oh, another thing I love about Grab, dude, I freaking love their management. I have researched their management in depth. I've listened to previous interviews. I've listened to the earnings call like 5 times at this point. You can't trust a lot of foreign companies. These guys, not only can I trust them, I actually believe in their bullishness for the future. And it seems like they actually understand that the stock is not reflecting the growth, but eventually the growth is coming and then the stock will reflect it as well. Hold on. Can you guys hear this? No, you guys cannot hear this. You guys can hear that, right? That's muted. Yeah, that's the video. That's the video. Let me just pull it up on YouTube instead. Put it up there. The option position is 7.5 $10 debit spreads. I said it a while ago, but it's a call debit spread in January 2027, 7.5, $10. I bought the 7.5. I sold the $10 spread, which is going for like 35 cents right now. My average on that is 34 cents. So it's green today. It could be red tomorrow, but that's the spread position. And the max value of the spread is 250. It's trading for 35 cents. So it's a 7X if Grab gets to $10 in 2 years, which I don't know if that's super ambitious or that's super obvious to me. I'm leaning on the side of this is obvious. This thing is not going to be stuck given the growth rates that we're seeing, unless there's a thesis breaker, which could happen. But if there's no thesis breaker that I'm seeing, these guys are getting to $10 in 2 years. And because of the options, that's a 7X from there. But again, you got to have conviction, dude. You got to have conviction. If you get into a play like that, you got to believe in it. And you got to be able to buy when it's, at some of the lowest levels it's been at over the past 5 months. All right, here's the CFO, and let's see what he has to say about Southeast Asia.
And what you're seeing is a couple of things here. One is our banks business, which is more nascent. We have over $1 billion of deposits in both banks that we have in Singapore as well as in Malaysia. That's triple actually if you look at a year-over-year basis. But at the same time, also coupled with our non-bank business, what you're seeing is our loan book also growing. That's up 80% on a year-over-year basis. We actually dispersed close to about $500 million last quarter. So on an annualized basis, we're dispersing about over $2 billion now in terms of loans to our merchants, customers, as well as to our drivers, to our ecosystem effectively. So you're seeing good traction across our business today. It's still very early, I would say also. What we are committed is to make sure that our banks will break even by second half 2026. Our non-bank business continues to be strong in profitability. And we're going to continue to make sure that we have product adoption and also serving our customer base and driving scale and also efficiency in our financial services business.
And Peter, one concern actually in the region of Southeast Asia where Grab makes its operates mostly is the strength of consumer confidence. And there are a handful of countries that have actually raised concerns that consumer confidence is a bit shaky, especially given that global macro uncertainty that we're seeing. Because Grab is in so many of these countries and actually very much in touch with a lot of these consumers, what is your take on consumer confidence and where the temperature is right now across the various markets in Southeast Asia that you're operating in?
Sure, JP. We are seeing very strong demand actually across the 700 cities and the 8 countries that we're operating in Southeast Asia. If you look at our growth on our mobility business, it was up 24% on a year-over-year basis. The number of transactions overall on our on-demand platform was up 22% on a year-over-year basis. And as we look at the month of October alone, we're seeing good momentum in our business also overall. So we're not seeing any slowdown when it comes to the region itself. Tourists continues to increase. Also, the traffic of tourism coming inbound to Southeast Asia continues to be strong, which we're a big beneficiary of that. But at the same time, also from a longer term, if you look at a third-party report that was put out last week, also they're seeing good momentum of growth for the next 5 years across Southeast Asia in the digital economy. They cited double-digit CAGR growth, and we believe that actually that will come into fruition because Southeast Asia is still a very underpenetrated market for Grab.
So they're bullish on the industry, and I am bullish as well. Yes, Grab will have an earnings. They're an American company that's headquartered in Singapore. When you're buying shares, you're not buying ADRs. You're not buying American, what is it, depository something. You're not buying a shell of a share. You're buying a real share. So from my understanding and some of the people I talk to, these guys have the cleanest books in Asia. They are not, there's a lot of Asian companies that cook their books. These guys, you're not going to have to worry about that. It's just a question of growth. And I think the growth's going to be there. And, you buy it when the growth is not there, hoping the growth will be there, and hopefully you benefit. That's the whole point of asymmetric. Oh, the other reason I think it's asymmetric, dude, is I need a double to get a 7x on the stock. So, or on the option. So I'm like, okay, I'm giving myself 2 years for a double on a stock that has been consolidating below $5 for 3 years. They just became profitable. They have 2 years to expand all that profitability. They're buying back their stock, and they're in a very strong region for growth in terms of digital infrastructure, banking, deliveries, ride hailing, et cetera, which is Southeast Asia. And FSD is not a threat to Southeast Asia, because if anyone's been to Southeast Asia, there's no FSD happening anytime soon there. Maybe in like 10 years, but it is not happening in those locations. It's just not a thing. So I don't know. That's like, I think the thesis is pretty obvious, but I think earnings will give us a good understanding of what it looks like. I bought options, not stock. I mean, I have a little bit of stock, but mainly bought options. This is more asymmetric on the options instead. Okay, let's listen to Dalio because we saw a little bit of him, but he has this clip about the U.S. debt crisis. So we'll end the show listening to that clip and where he thinks U.S. debt is going long term as well. Is Nvidia below 122? Oh boy, freaking Nvidia 121.9. This thing cannot catch a break. I think the market's waiting for Meta and Microsoft at this point. That's rough. One down 5.4%, basically giving back like almost 80% of what it got yesterday. Nvidia 121 here right now.
Here's what it is.
Let me pull up this chart for you real quick, Ray. So I just want to highlight the CBO projection, right? So this is the U.S. government's debt as a percent of the U.S. government's revenue, which you indicate in your book is more important than debt to GDP. You've got to look at the actual revenue being generated by the government and how much debt they have. And the CBO highlights this expansion to 700%, meaning the government is going to have a debt level that's 7 times the income it's making every year over the next, I believe this is a 10-year chart. And you propose a bunch of actions that can keep it flat over the next 10 years, which is the basis of the book. There's a series of recommendations in the book. I just want to kind of voice over, again, you highlight that there are 4 actions. One is increased taxes. So obviously citizens are going to lose assets and lose income. So there's a loss to the citizens when this happens. Cutting spending or austerity, and there's obviously a loss of services by the government provided to the citizens. So the citizens are going to lose services, they're going to lose benefits. A central bank buying the debt, which will typically increase inflation because more money will come to the markets and everything costs more. So that's another form of taxation where the value of your dollar or the value of your assets goes down. And then this kind of restructuring of the debt where, again, the currency gets devalued and everyone loses things. And so I just wanted to kind of walk through that. Maybe you could frame this up for us a little bit.
Sure. Like that chart, if you go back to that chart, think about that chart as being, your plaque so to speak, in the arteries and the debt service. So you could calculate all those numbers, and you know what the picture looks like. And that is a stability. And so number one is, I call it my 3% solution. Here, the solution is you must cut the deficit, which is the equivalent of bonds selling, down to 3% of GDP. And it's 7.5% expected. Now, different people have different views as to how to cut it. Forget it. I don't really care. Just you have to have a unified agreement. Everybody in Congress and the president and so on should pledge to do that. And then the question is how to do it. But they should know that number.
That's about $900 billion a year.
Yeah.
Roughly. And that means cutting it, as you point out, by cutting the deficit by more than half from where it sits.
Yeah, well, it's yes, because it with the continuing the tax cuts, Trump tax cuts, that'll be 7.5%, and you want to get it down to 3%. And it sounds draconian, but we did that kind of change from 1991 till 1997.
So the point is, Dalio thinks we got to do a lot of shit to resolve this debt. Doge is maybe one good way to begin that process, but he is a bit more skeptical on the ability. It was a really good interview that he did with the Olin podcast to try to see if debt can come down in any meaningful way. And I guess we're going to see over the next couple of years, can we get debt down in a way that would not be the worst thing for our kids' over the next century, essentially. Okay, I think that's it, guys. We'll be back at 2:20 for a very, very, very long stream. We will have JPOW at 2:30. So 2:20, I'll be live. We'll get the decision at 2 o'clock. And then 2:30, he'll be talking. So we'll analyze the decision in those 10 minutes, which will be a pause most likely. Then 2:30 to 3:30, we get the JPOW conference. And then after that 30 minutes, at 3:30, we basically start our earnings coverage. I'll have a couple people join me on the show as well. And from 3:30 till basically 7:30, so call it 4 hours, Tesla, Microsoft, and Meta will report. It's going to be wild, bro. It's going to legit be wild. Is there anyone else besides Tesla, Microsoft, Meta? We also have Waste Management, IBM, ServiceNow, Lam Research. These are still big companies as well. So going to be a lot of results to dive into. And hopefully the big three crush it, because we need big tech to keep doing what they're doing. 2:30 is when he talks. 2 p.m. the decision comes out. I'll be live at 2:20. So I'll be live 10 minutes before he talks. And then we'll go live. Is there outro music now? Oh my gosh. Maybe one day we come with it. Outro music wouldn't be too bad, dude. Outro music would actually be fun. Maybe we do that. Maybe eventually we do that. Word of the day is onerous.
Onerous.
Burdensome, oppressive, or troublesome, causing hardship. The tennis player found the contract too onerous, so she refused to sign it. The hike became more onerous as the trail became muddier in the rain. Well, this CapEx guidance hopefully does not become onerous for Nvidia and cause hardship, which I don't think it will, bro. I will be very surprised if Zucks or Nadella takes back their statements because of DeepSeek. I will be perplexed. I will be very surprised. I don't think that's happening, but there's a chance. And if that does happen, look out below for Nvidia. If that doesn't happen, hopefully Nvidia stabilizes. So I think we'll be okay. All right, that's it for me. Thank you, everybody. We'll be live for the biggest day of 2025 in the stock market so far in about 2 hours. Bye, everyone. Have a good one. I'll see you guys in just a little bit. Bye, everybody.